Chapter 101. That's a touch of red. That's a disk. This is No 093, Red Sea object. It was something that looked like a red disk, and it looked like a cinnabar stone carving. There are also unknown weird symbols, and ring carvings on it. It doesn't look very big, about a centimeter or so. Although there are engravings, the surface is smooth. This thing. Ye Qing frowned subconsciously. This thing is not an ordinary thing. As far as the contents are concerned, this thing is just average. But if this thing is placed in the small world, it will be against the sky. Name, Red Sea object, No 093, race, structure level. Type, inheritance item talent skill, gate of dimensional space, passive, description, the key to open the parallel world. Yes, this Red Sea object is actually a key to open a parallel world. Moreover, this thing will turn into different colors according to different people. Different colors have different spatial coordinates. And the characteristics of this Red Sea object are also a bit peculiar. It will automatically check, when there is a reflective mirror around it, its characteristics will be activated, and, when it is close to the mirror, nothing can stop it. When people hold this Red Sea object, they can pass through the mirror, open the door of space, and go to the parallel world. In the original Red Sea object, the parallel world opened is naturally the parallel world of Blue Star. In that world, in a certain year, because of a certain god, the world was destroyed, and many monsters remained. And these monsters are collectively called unclean. And the parallel world that was opened is naturally also called an unclean place. However, the current situation is somewhat special. Ye Qing didn't know whether the Red Sea object opened up a parallel world the size of the Blue Star, or a parallel world in the small world of his containment world. If it is the former, he will naturally earn 20 points. In the latter case, the problem is a bit bigger. Ye Qing looked at the Red Sea object card and fell into deep thought. Difficult to do, this thing is really difficult to do. If the small world of the containment world is opened, is there a universe in that parallel world? Is there another self in the parallel world? Ye Qing frowned, lost in thought. However, at this moment, the cold mechatronic sound of the system suddenly sounded. Ding, please rest assured the host, all the contained objects are under the control of the host. A rare system prompt. Hearing this, Ye Qing was overjoyed. If there is a systematic endorsement, then naturally there will be no problem. Regardless of whether this parallel world belongs to Blue Star or a small world, he will always make money. Inheritance items, Red Sea objects. Material. With a thought in Ye Qing's mind, in the next second, relevant dismantling materials appeared in front of his eyes. And this dismantling, when Ye Qing saw it, daytime couldn't help frowning. The main source of the world, the template of the small world, a CD. The corners of Ye Qing's mouth twitched wildly. What the hell, are all the things these containment needs are so heaven-defying now? The immortal lizard needs to sell dimension fragments. The sage Qin Shuang wants to dissect the corpse of the immortal. One is rarer than the other, and the one is more heaven-defying than the other. Now it's not just as simple as wanting items, but also the main source of the world, the small world template. Damn, where can I find this thing? Could it be possible to kill a world lord by himself and rob him of his origin? To rob his small world? Ye Qing heaved a long sigh and had no choice but to follow up. Putting the Red Sea thing aside. Immediately, he set his sights on the other containment cards. There are also 3 containment cards, and 2 orange cards. For the color card, put it at the back first, and open the storage card first. With a thought, Ye Qing immediately drew out a storage card and opened it without saying a word. Surrounded by golden light, in the next second, a figure slowly appeared on the containment card. That's a snail? Snails? Ye Qing raised his eyebrows slightly, and in the next second, a related attribute panel appeared in front of him. Name, corrosive snail, No 075, race, snail level, extraordinary type, containment talent skills, high speed, active, corrosive acid, active, overweight, passive, description, speeding warning, be careful to spray acid on your face. Ye Qing raised her eyebrows. It turned out to be this thing? Not too strong, not too weak. However, this snail is a bit interesting. It looks no more than the size of a palm. Although it is a large snail, its appearance is amazing. There are 6 claws, which are pseudopodia of snails. But The weight of this thing is even more against the sky, just such a small one, a full 860 kilograms. Yes, that's right, it's just such a small one, weighing 860 kilograms, it's kilograms, not catties. If you want to contain this snail, you can only use a dry environment. In a dry environment, it will go dormant. And when the environment is no longer dry, he will wake up and activate. Move at high speed, like a big truck, rampage. And, starting to hunt, it will jump to its prey and spray its prey with a highly corrosive liquid secreted from the small holes in its pseudopods. These secretions are more corrosive than any substance known to man. Although this snail is only extraordinary, but with its terrifying weight, size, high-speed movement, and the corrosive acid that defies the sky. Tisk tisk, I can only say that there are many tricks. It's okay, barely okay. Ye Qing thought about this, and immediately, related reports appeared in front of him. The source of acid, fragments of super heavy law, a common snail. Oh? It's not expensive. Ye Qing nodded, this thing is available on the main official website of the world. Ye Qing is not in a hurry to buy. Soon, he looked at the next containment card. Login to continue reading. Chapter 102. Supreme Divinity. Good guy, it's been so many days, and this is the first time I've seen the Supreme Divinity. The legendary Supreme Divinity. Every Supreme Divinity is an extremely heaven-defying existence. Every Supreme Divinity is an extremely powerful existence. And the stag. In the description, it is shown that it is an extremely powerful existence, and its strength is much stronger than any divinity. The Supreme Divinity is an existence stronger than divinity. Even, all Supreme Divinity is the only existence. In the next second, before Ye Qing's eyes, the Supreme Divinity, the stag's attribute panel appeared. Name, Stag, No 2845 Silly Roe Deer, Race, God Level, Quasi-Myth Type, Supreme Divinity Talent Skills, Material Transformation, Active, Material Reconstruction, Active, Domain, Passive, Physical Immunity, Passive, Description, the alien deer god who came across the stars, ancient and powerful, but extremely stupid. As expected, it is the Supreme Divinity. Ye Qing said with emotion, although there is very little information, the Supreme Divinity is the Supreme Divinity. The rank column has already explained everything. Quasi-mythical. New tier. Ye Qing stared blankly at the steps myth. This is a level above the legend, but the real highest level, and even a truly immortal existence. It can be said that the existence of this mythical level is the real ceiling. And quasi-mythical. It is an existence that can definitely become a myth. Creatures of the mythical level may be different from creatures of other levels. For other levels, there is also a divinity and a non-divinity. But the mythical creature itself is a divine existence. Generally speaking, as far as Ye Qing knows, the supreme divine containment is at least at the level of mythology. But this stag. How should I put it? Strong is definitely strong, but it depends on who you compare with. Compared with other ordinary containment objects, this stag is definitely against the sky, it is definitely at the level of instant kill. Even, the divine containment is not as good as the stag. However, if the stag is compared with any other supreme divinity, it will not compare. Not to mention all the supreme divinities, but among most of the supreme divinities, this stag must belong to the bottom ranks. But, to be able to draw out the supreme divinity today, this luck is already considered to be against the sky. The most important thing is that he doesn't need to care about any materials, he can directly summon the supreme divine stag. Well, stupid is a bit stupid, but the supreme divinity is the supreme divinity, and the combat power is against the sky, this is enough. Not bad. Ye Qing smiled. Before, he drew one, was disappointed with one, and in the end, he started drawing cards with salted fish. But now, the last card gave him a surprise, an accident. Supreme Divinity. The Supreme Divinity in the true sense. And now? With a thought, Ye Qing turned his head, looked at the computer, and opened the main official website of the world. Soon, he searched for all kinds of materials he needed on the main official website of the world. The materials this time, except for the Red Sea item, which is a little hard to find, the rest are not easy to find. Generally speaking, it is sold online. Especially the little metal figurine, on the internet, you can find all kinds of magical materials, and you can find all kinds of metals at will. Soon, the robot was delivered again, and yet 2 signed for it directly. The total cost is less than 400 million. Leading all kinds of divine materials, all kinds of materials, with the thought, he directly descended into the containment world. However, when it appeared, Ye Qing was stunned. Today's containment world is simply a big change. It is still a 2-story building, the lower one is still a place to raise various creatures, and the upper one is a high-rise building with various buildings, but now it is directly overthrown. Instead, it was indeed a huge palace. On the palace, there are 3 big characters Xianyang Palace written on it. The palace is majestic and magnificent, and it is very glorious. It was carved with dragons and painted with phoenixes, glittering with golden light. The huge building can be called a classical heavenly palace, standing on top of the clouds. And the surroundings are naturally a complex of palaces. The scale is huge, it is no less than the glorious Xianyang Palace in ancient times. Those winged people, dragon people, tiger people, and lizard people were all used as guards of the palace, and they no longer had the glory they once had. As for the so-called Protoss? Sorry, all of them are now divided into low-level human races. Yes, there is no doubt that the sage Qin Shi Huang conquered this containment world. 3,000 troops, relying on that legendary warship and Qin Shi Huang's quasi-legendary strength. This containment area was taken in 3 days. It's really called a vertical and horizontal, sweeping Liu He. It took 3 days, because Qin Shi Huang deliberately set the speed to full speed, which only took 3 days. Otherwise, with Qin Shi Huang's absolute strength, let alone a day, just his existence, the coercion, can be coercive the entire containment world. Therefore, it is inevitable for Qin Shi Huang to unify the containment world. After Qin Shi Huang unified the world, after such a long time, the Xianyang Palace was gradually expanded, and the great Qin dynasty was re-established. And the former Emperor of Apocalypse, now Dr. Clef, no matter how reluctant he is, he can only abdicate in the end, find a research institute underground, and go in for research by himself. And others exist. Login to continue reading. Chapter 103. Supreme Divinity. Ye Qing pondered, looking at the current containment world. The Supreme Divinity is indeed very strong, and it can definitely become his trump card against the sky. However, Ye Qing is also afraid that this stupid Rodir is too stupid. If the containment world is ruined, it won't be worth it. Ye Qing pondered for a while, then shook her head amusedly. Forget it, if it's broken, as long as the combat power is still there. Ye Qing shook his head, and after thinking about it, no matter how bad the containment world is, it won't be so bad. Besides, there is still the legend of the sage Qin Shi Huang. Although quasi-legend and quasi-myth, the difference is not the slightest bit. But he believed that whether it was Qin Shi Huang, those dragon snails, or Dr. Clef, wouldn't it be easy to fool this stupid Rodir? Different containment objects have different characteristics, and this silly Rodir needs to be fooled. It's almost enough to make him limp. It is enough to show the strength of Great Qin and the strength of Qin Shi Huang. There are ways to fool you. After thinking up to this point, Ye Qing didn't hesitate, and directly summoned the stag. In the next second, a group of stars flashed past, and the stars were dotted with light. Immediately, Ye Qing felt a blur in front of his eyes, and a gorgeous figure appeared in front of him. It was a creature that looked a bit like a deer. With a shoulder height of 2.9 meters, a bent neck, and a standing posture, that head is actually a human head. It looks a bit like a woman. Gorgeous and noble, there is a circle of ice particles suspended behind the head. His existence alone gives people an extremely powerful and extremely noble feeling. Supreme Divinity, Tuanlu. His eyes rolled slightly, and then, he saw Ye Qing. In an instant, it understood who Ye Qing was and the meaning of Ye Qing's existence. Immediately, he slightly bent his knees and knelt down. That beautiful female voice was mixed with a hoarse and magnetic male voice. That mixed voice resounded faintly, "Go down and pay homage to the God of creation." 703 He calls himself God. He himself knows that he is God. Well, get up. Ye Qing nodded lightly. Although this stag is stupid, but he is not mentally retarded, he knows what is what, and he also knows the etiquette. Seeing the stag get up slowly, Ye Qing spoke again immediately, "From now on, this containment world will be a new God realm. If you are not comfortable living, you can also change the new environment in the starry sky." The stag and even the high divinity have the history of creation out of thin air. Even in the void, he can create an environment suitable for his own survival. Well, of course, Creating certainly hasn't been as easy as changing. However, it doesn't matter if you want to survive in the tolerance world, just find an empty room and let him change it. If it doesn't work, just divide another area for the stags. In short, Ye Qing really said a lot. The stag nodded, not knowing whether he understood or not. Ye Qing didn't care about this either. What should I do? As for the periodic table villain? Of course, I created it as I wanted to create it. Just find a place to throw it away and let them survive by themselves. They have their own group size, their own subordinates, and their own social system. Just let them make troubles by themselves, and Ye Qing doesn't need to worry about the rest. So far, today's containment is only the Red Sea object that has not been created. Now, with the Supreme Divinity Stag, although the stag is likely to be the bottom of the Supreme Divinity, it does not prevent it from being attacked by other creatures. If according to the standards of previous years, Ye Qing said, not to mention winning the first prize in the whole province, he has the confidence to win even the top prize in the country. As for the situation this year, it is unknown, Kasi. However, he still believes that the whole province is just a starting point, and the whole country is his stage. And of course, there's a Red Sea object. If the Red Sea object is created, the scale of Ye Qing's world will have to be bigger and more terrifying. A parallel world of Blue Star. Even if this parallel world can't compare with the current Blue Star of the God Realm. But even the former Blue Star has a world area of 400,000 kilometers. A planet is a small world. A world area of 400,000 kilometers. Ye Qing has never even heard of Ye Qing. A world area of 10,000 kilometers can be called a third-order world master. 400,000 kilometers, how many levels must this be? Tier 4? Or Tier 5? Of course, it's too early to say that. With the thought in Ye Qing's mind, consciousness came back to reality. I just don't know the origin of the master of this world, where to find the small world template. Ye Qing looked at the Red Sea object card in his hand and fell into deep thought. Soon, he was on the main official website of the world, and began to search for relevant content to, search keyword. The origin of the Lord of the World small world template. Ye Qing filtered out those meaningless information, and soon, he understood what the main source of this world is. Every world master has an origin. That's the key to connecting small worlds. Once this source is lost, the world lord will no longer be the world lord. This thing has a certain relationship with the soul and the body. Some abyssal monsters like to devour the world lord. It is guessed that they devour the source of the world lord, so as to improve their own strength. As for the small world template, this thing is related to the small world. This is actually a template for the evolution direction of the small world. Login to continue reading. Chapter 104. It's night. Ye Qing goes to bed early and prepares for the next day's secret battle. Number XX. At this moment, Ye Qing suddenly felt some shock, and immediately opened his eyes, and his eyes suddenly became sharp. Immediately, with a wave of his hand, a badge appeared in his hand. It's the Death Star key. But at this time, the Death Star key was shining with light. Now, above the Death Star key, there are still some inexplicable fluctuations of space laws. Are you coming? So soon? Ye Qing was still a little dazed at first, but he didn't come back to his senses until he saw the Death Star key light up, coming. This so-called secret realm. Originally, Ye Qing was still thinking about when this secret realm would come, so he had to get up early and get ready. But he didn't want to. Before he got up, this secret realm began. While there was still time, he quickly got up, washed up. He was even brushing his teeth, and in the next second, the Death Star key in his hand radiated light, and the light gathered, and finally, completely wrapped Ye Qing, and Ye Qing disappeared and was teleported away in an instant. Ye Qing only felt a blur in front of his eyes, and when he regained his sight again, he found that he had appeared on a high platform before he knew it. A lot of dust has accumulated on the ground. Obviously it is an ancient teleportation array that has not been used for a long time. Now, Ye Qing is ushered in. Separate teleportation. Ye Qing looked at the empty teleportation platform, heaved a sigh of relief, but also hopeful. He thought that this teleportation was all teleport together, but now it seems that they are teleport separately. Also good. At least in this way, he was not exposed to the eyes of others. Stat. Ye Qing looked at the surrounding environment again, and began to size up this so-called secret realm. At a glance, you can't see the end at all, it's definitely not as simple as a small world. And this so-called secret realm, from most people's point of view, is a high-rise building, at least a modern society that is not as advanced as technological civilization. Ye Qing even saw the bustling neighborhood, it was really full of people coming and going. Yes, there are people. This so-called secret realm is really like a parallel world, with people, cars, and planes. This is the secret realm. Ye Qing was a little surprised. The secret realm he imagined is the kind of world where monsters are everywhere in the deep mountains and old forests. By killing monsters, what rewards are obtained, or what treasure chests are found, or what treasure medicines are found, what natural treasures are found, and so on. This is the secret realm in his impression. But now this so-called 3-star secret realm made him a little confused and puzzled. In a daze, Ye Qing thought that she had returned to her previous life. Look at this so-called transmission location again. Well, it should be at the top of a tall building. The runes of the teleportation array were faintly visible, and such lines appeared when Ye Qing was teleporting. After the teleportation, the lines disappeared. It looks like a normal tall building that can no longer be normal, nothing special or surprising. After the golden light around Ye Qing dissipated, Ye Qing looked just like the pedestrians on the ground. Usually. So common. But because it was so normal, Ye Qing felt very strange. He went downstairs quickly. Of course he was taking the elevator, and he didn't want to appear too abnormal. Soon, he entered the block and quickly understood what was going on in this so-called secret realm. Here, it should be abroad. There are blonde and blue-eyed foreigners everywhere, and of course, Asian faces like Ye Qing are not uncommon. Overall, there's really nothing unusual about it. Language communication? Of course it's not an obstacle as a world lord, with an epic system, learning a new language can't be easier. At this moment, Ye Qing began to collect information. At the same time, the same scene also happened in various blocks, in various places in the secret realm. At the same time, in the sky, a search is suspended in the space aircraft carrier between the clouds. In the chief's office, a black bald one-eyed man is reading a document in his hand. Just then, dong dong dong, there was a sudden knock on the door. The one-eyed dragon's sharp eyes were like a falcon, staring at the door of the Ligong office instantly. But behold, the office was pushed away, and a blonde, blue-eyed, capable woman in a uniform walked in. Looking at this woman, the sharp eyes of the bald one-eyed dragon gradually recovered, but he still kept a straight face and asked lightly, "What's the matter?" "Director, 18 energy fluctuations have been detected, and a space anomaly has appeared," the woman said slowly, and handed the document in her hand to Director Cyclops. "Hey!" Director Cyclops narrowed his eyes slightly, took the document, and examined it carefully. 18 energy fluctuations, 18 space anomalies. That energy came too fast and disappeared even faster. They only detected approximate locations. However, these locations are widely scattered and can be found in every district. However, the duration and time of appearance of this energy fluctuation are surprisingly consistent. It's as if someone came in batches from different regions. Don't tell me, this is the arrival of aliens. The director frowned at the female subordinate. It doesn't have to be the arrival of aliens, it may also be that people with superpowers have committed crimes, the female subordinate said. Where is that person? The director asked again. This. Login to continue reading. Chapter 105. What it is. Anyone with superpowers. Wormhole? Is that a wormhole? Aliens have invaded. At this moment, with the appearance of the mutation, the pedestrians around Ye Qing stopped to watch one after another. They all looked curiously at the space wormhole that suddenly appeared in the sky, and at the alien fleet behind the wormhole. There was a lot of discussion there. At this time, Ye Qing looked at the wormhole and the golden light that suddenly appeared, and was taken aback for a while. Alien invasion? Good guy, is it so exciting when you come here? But immediately, he laughed again. Like, this is nothing? Alien invasion means that something big will happen. Moreover, such a major event will inevitably attract other world masters. Although the people in this secret realm look similar, it is not possible to distinguish between a world lord and a non-world lord. But, with a thought, Ye Qing immediately turned around and entered an office building, walking towards the rooftop. Boom! At the same time, behind the space wormhole, terrifying alien monsters with hideous appearance descended on this world densely like locusts. That huge fleet that looked like steel worms went through the wormhole and wandered over the city. It also jumped off countless alien monsters. Rampage, let's begin. When the first person fell down, all the 710 began to panic, one by one ran away from each other in panic, and hid in the house in fear. But obviously, facing the laser weapons in the hands of these aliens, it is futile for them to run. If you are lucky, you can hide quickly. If you are unlucky, you will be hit by a shot and belch directly. On the rooftop, Ye Qing watched all this quietly, not intending to interfere at all. Help? Joke, what is he going to do to help? What does this have to do with him? What is this not for? All he should do now is just wait quietly. Of course, his eyes still looked around from time to time, wanting to see if there were any other world lords appearing. But after watching for a long time, I still didn't see the appearance of the world lord. Then there was a man in gold and red steel armor galloping in the sky, with the cannons in his hands gathering, bombarding, and killing these aliens. Even, there was a loud thunder and lightning in the sky, and a blond man with hammer in his hand descended with violent thunder and lightning, bombarding, and killing these aliens. And the guy in the stars and stripes uniform with the shield, forcing a 50-50th split with those aliens. There's even a green-skinned titan who smashes everything with a berserk punch. Some so-called superheroes came on stage, and they started to defend the neighborhood. For this, Ye Qing just watched with interest. He was only paying attention to the world lord from the beginning to the end. If you want to reap benefits, you will naturally find those world masters. It's a pity that those world masters haven't appeared yet. Perhaps, the critical moment has not yet come. That should be it. Before the critical moment, these world masters will not be able to reap the greatest benefits. But if you guessed right. Ye Qing looked at the building where the golden beam was still emitting. There should be no bay well, it should still be a very heaven-defying baby. Not to mention putting it in the outside world, at least in this secret realm, that thing is definitely in existence against the sky. And, not one, but two. With the thought, Ye Qing's figure flickered, regardless of whether the world masters or not, he went straight towards the tallest building. His figure is as fast as a ghost, and with an epic system, he is almost like a humanoid tank. It is easy to jump hundreds of meters, and it is also easy to squeeze and explode the steel bars with bare hands. This is the metamorphosis of the epic physique. An epic physique is definitely a monster level. Therefore, Ye Qing easily bypassed the various blocks and appeared in Laudi, the tallest building. Looking at the dazzling beam of light at the top of the building, and at the alien monsters still raging around, he took a deep breath and jumped hard. Boom! He stepped on a huge pothole in the ground in an instant, and his figure was even more like a cannonball, and he jumped up to the roof in an instant. On the roof, a special device is emitting golden light. And in that device, there is a bright cube like a blue ocean. This device is extracting the energy of the cube and opening the space hole. And in front of the device, there is another person. A man with cloudy eyes holding a scepter. The man looked at the device in front of him with enthusiasm and looked at the space wormhole opened by the device, and cheered excitedly. Obviously, this wormhole was opened by him. Look at the scepter in that man's hand. Sure enough, at the top of the scepter, there was another gemstone shining with orange light. Sure enough. Ye Qing nodded and smiled. Sure enough, it was the same as he had guessed, and it really was. The blue cube, known as the space gem, is one of the highest creations of this type, this world, and this system. And that orange gem, known as the existence of the soul gem, is also one of the highest heaven-defying creations. I wanted to get a Death Star, but I didn't want to, and there are unexpected rewards. Ye Qing smiled lightly and walked towards the man. In his perception, the person in front of him basically has no strength, just like an ordinary person. He can suppress it with a flip of his hand. Login to continue reading. Chapter 106. Okay. At this moment, with the appearance of the stag, the young man was slightly taken aback, looking at the stag with some astonishment. Feeling the slightly terrifying and slightly abnormal aura of the stag. There is no doubt that this is definitely a very powerful creature. Not mechanical creations. Generally speaking, those who follow the technological route rarely create extraordinary creatures, let alone such powerful creatures. Therefore, there is only one resilience. You are not the world master of the technological system. Mechanic Heart frowned at Ye Qing, a little surprised. However, Ye Qing didn't even answer. He just looked at the stag and said calmly, "Kill him." "Obey, my lord god." The stag lowered its proud head, and immediately, those bright eyes looked at the mechanical heart, and immediately forward. The mechanical heart only felt a strange power acting on it. That power was very strong, so strong that it was terrifying, and it was so strong that it defied the sky. That feeling is indescribable, as if I am being forcibly changed by some force. His complexion changed drastically. He wanted to say something, to resist something. However, his world power is completely vulnerable to this power. Buzz. Surrounded by light, his whole body directly turned into a rubbery yellow-green hexagonal cylinder. Dead, the so-called mechanical heart, just died. Oh, to be precise, he's not dead, he's just been transformed into number -2845 to 1. However, this number -2845 to 1 looks very different from the appearance of a human being, so there is this illusion. Although number -2845 to 1 looks like an object, in essence, he still has vital signs, that is to say, he is still alive, but he has just been transformed into this appearance. Even, it looks like a hexagon, but the inside is actually the whole brain. A derivative of the stag, a transformed hexagonal tower-shaped brain creature. No matter how stupid a god is, he will eventually have the ability to improve his wisdom and thinking. Just like this stag. In short, the more brains, the more thinking she can mobilize. That's what group thinking is all about. A stupid god always finds a way to turn himself into a smart god. And now, a world master in the real world, at least the world master of an epic technological world system, has just become a part of the stag group thinking, can only say. The Supreme Divinity is the Supreme Divinity. The Supreme Divinity is simply against the sky. Say instant kill, instant kill. Talk about transforming. This is the Supreme Divinity, and this is the crushing on the absolute level. But at this time, the stag glanced slightly, and looked at the previous doctor, the scientist. In the next second, that doctoral scientist also turned into that hexagonal cylinder. The same look, the same prison head instantly kill everything. The Supreme Divinity is so terrifying. Worthy of the Supreme Divinity. This first shot killed the epic world master in seconds. Although until now, Ye Qing doesn't know how strong the so-called mechanical heart is, how powerful it is, and even, that mechanical heart seems to be a celebrity in a certain circle. Ye Qing didn't care about this. Since this is a secret realm and it is not open to the public, it will be destroyed if it is destroyed, so what? Besides, so what if someone finds out? He was never afraid of being famous. There is always a solution to a problem. That's the way he acts. And at this time, Ye Qing stepped forward, looked at the blue space cube, cosmic cube, and then at the orange gemstone inlaid on the scepter. With a thought, he held the scepter in his hand. Nothing fancy, nothing special. Ye Qing looked at the gemstone, then at the scepter, and immediately used the scepter to stab the barrier of the device. Crack! The barrier is like glass, and it will shatter when touched. Ye Qing is about to reach out and take the so-called cosmic cube space gem in his hand. However, at this moment, a playful chuckle suddenly sounded. Friends, misappropriating other people's things without the owner's permission is called stealing. Didn't your so-called United Nations teach you how to steal? Be a good law-abiding citizen. However, Ye Qing ignored it at all, and reached out for the so-called cosmic cube directly. It's such a time, who would stop and tell you some great truths? Buzz. The cosmic cube fell into Ye Qing's hands in an instant, surrounded by blue light. At the same time, because the energy supply of the cosmic cube was lost, the device also shut down at this moment. On the sky, the door to space also began to shrink slowly at the same time, until finally, it was completely closed. And with the closure of the space wormhole, the countless alien races that were still raging on the block, at this moment, seemed to be misfired, one by one fell to the ground. Even the huge worm body the fleet also fell to the ground at this moment, due to the loss of energy source supply. This alien invasion, before it even started, is over. In the end, only a mess was left. Until the moment when the door of the space was closed, Ye Qing thought for a moment, as if feeling something staring at her. He directly raised his head and looked at the space wormhole. However, the wormhole has been closed, and it is unknown who is staring at him. Being targeted? What's the matter? Ye Qing didn't know about this, but said she didn't care. He is not from this secret world, so what if he is targeted? What to do, what to do? No one has ever ignored me like this. However, at this moment, a voice sounded from behind Ye Qing again. A voice that contained anger and had a hint of chill. It wasn't until this moment that Ye Qing turned his head, looked behind him, and looked at the person coming. But I saw, it was a handsome young man wearing a green and yellow robe, holding a scepter, and a crown of antlers on his head. However, handsome is handsome, but those eyes are unbelievably cold, with murderous intent in them. The most important thing is that there are faint waves of divinity coming from him. And his strength has even reached the epic level. Epic divine creature. Get rid of him. But obviously, Ye Qing didn't care whether this guy was a god or an epic. He looked directly at the stag next to him and ordered. Shua. The next moment, the stag's eyes looked directly at that guy. Kebd. Pfft. The guy exploded into a puff of smoke and disappeared. Yes, it didn't transform into a pillar, it just disappeared. Regarding this, the stag tilted his head in some doubts, some didn't understand, some didn't understand. Ye Qing raised her eyebrows slightly. Is this the stag's S**exchange? What's the matter? It actually killed people directly instead of turning them into pillars? Wrong. A stag is a stag, stupid but also knowing what the order is. So, there is only one possibility. Clone. Phantom. Ye Qing murmured, and immediately turned her head to look in another direction to perceive carefully. However, before he could perceive it clearly, he saw that in the void, a person exactly the same as before, surrounded by a burst of green light, gradually emerged. Yes, it was indeed a phantom before, not the real body. The strength of the stag is against the sky, but there is no way to distinguish the phantom of the clone. Rao Ye Qing was fooled by this extremely clever clone phantom technique. One can imagine the guy in front of him has super high attainments in this area, stupid mortals. But at this time, that guy was indeed smiling contemptuously, and immediately snorted again. However, you have successfully provoked me. Now, kneel down. He shouted loudly, and the scepter in his hand hit the ground heavily. Boom! A terrifying coercion from a divine epic creature fell on Ye Qing. God's power is like the sea, God's grace is like prison. This is the means of the gods, this is the power of the gods. But this coercion fell on Ye Qing, but Ye Qing didn't even lift a single corner of Ye Qing's clothes. He looked at that guy lightly, neither joy nor sadness in his eyes. The breeze blew past, and for a while, the atmosphere in the venue was more or less awkward. And that guy also frowned slightly, looking at Ye Qing with some doubts for a moment. How could such a mortal be able to resist his own coercion? How is this possible? Are you a god? He wondered. How could he have imagined that Ye Qing is the lord of the world, and even more so, a creature of the containment world with the highest level of divinity? How can his so-called divine epic coercion be able to suppress it? Ye Qing had a thought, and was about to say something. Suddenly, something abnormal appeared in his perception. Immediately, he frowned and picked up the so-called cosmic cube space gem in his hand. Feeling the passing energy in the gem carefully, immediately crack. He exerted a little force with his hand, and in the next second, the space gem cosmic cube was directly crushed 827. Boom! A terrifying force of space vibrated, and finally, the cosmic cube turned into dots of blue light and disappeared. Fake. This is also a fake. Hee, stupid mortal, you are nothing more than a bigger ant to fight against gods. But at this time, that guy suddenly laughed and looked at Ye Qing with some complacency. Obviously, this so-called space gem is fake from beginning to end. It's just an A product with a little power of space gems. The real space gem is still in his hands. But Ye Qing looked at the yellow mind gemstone on the scepter in his hand, and with a thought, he took it off directly in his hand. In the next second, I feel that my brain is clear, and I can control all my dreams and desires, and I can watch all the storms in my heart. In front of his eyes, countless information appeared. The power of the Mind Stone. This thing is real. It is also true, if this thing is not real, there is no way to pierce the barrier created by the cosmic cube force. Even though the cosmic cube is fake, its power is not mixed with water. At most, it is equivalent to one is the power supply and the other is the battery. It's not bad, I'll take it. Ye Qing chuckled, and in the next second, a force of the world urged, and the yellow little spirit gem was directly attached to his forehead. Surrounded by bright yellow light, it is dazzling. At this moment, Ye Qing only felt that he could really control all thoughts, all dreams and desires. This is the power of the Mind Stone. Even the guy in front of him, his desires and dreams, his inflated ambitions and his conceited heart. In front of Ye Qing at this moment, he can see everything at a glance. This soul gem is like a developer's background, it can control everything, modify everything and observe everything at will. This is just one of the treasures in this secret realm. If all the other treasures are collected, Ye Qing can only say that the goods received this time will never be returned. You. However, at this moment, that guy looked at Ye Qing with an ugly expression. He was really slapped in the face. At the moment, he is very upset. Chapter 107. At this moment, with the soul gem sticking to Ye Qing's forehead, Ye Qing had an instant insight into everything around her. Then, he set his eyes on a certain place in the void. There, it looks empty with the naked eye, but in fact, there is where the guy's body is. Yes, the figure that appeared for the second time was also a clone and a phantom. Are you coming out by yourself, or shall I let you out? Ye Qing looked at the empty void and said lightly. He really couldn't see the gloomy guy, but he could feel the thoughts in that guy's mind, he could feel the terrifying ambition. And that phantom is just a phantom after all, not an entity. So, there are no more thoughts. Now that the main body has been found, it is gone. At the same time, buzz. With Ye Qing revealing the guy's position, the previous phantom slowly disappeared, replaced by another void. Above that void, that guy's body finally appeared. He silently looked at Ye Qing, frowning slightly. That mind gem was taken away just like that? A good plan, just laid out like this? Where did this unknown existence come from? He was a little puzzled, obviously unable to see what was going on with Ye Qing. Hand over the things, and I can spare your life. Ye Zhu said lightly. Hehe, do you really think you're going to get me? The guy sneered, turning his fingers slightly, and then, buzz. A blue light enveloped it in an instant, and in an instant, the space shifted and disappeared. Quick, really quick. It was almost too late for the stag to react, and it was almost too late for Ye Qing to make a move. That space teleportation is over. As expected, it is a space gem, and its speed is fast. Ye Qing felt a little emotional. Such is the power of gemstones. In this secret world, it is an absolute artifact. In front of me now, where do you want to go? Ye Qing chuckled. Before, he knew exactly where that guy wanted to go and where he wanted to teleport. This mind gem is simply the most heaven-defying mind-reading technique. And run? Hehe, how to run? Since Ye Qing has already sensed him, how can he let him go? As early as the moment Ye Qing sensed that guy, he used the power of the mind gem to silently manipulate his mind. Yes, even that guy left under Ye Qing's control. He even thought it was him who left, and thought it was his own thoughts. And at the same time, in an ancient ruin in a remote mountainous area, a spatial fluctuation appeared, and the tongue that had been dusty for countless years welcomed an unexpected guest. This person is the god who ran away in front of Ye Qing before, who claims to be the evil god, the god of mischief. Hehe, with the space gem in my hand, I can control this huge world. He smiled triumphantly, and condensed his fingers in the void. In the next second, the blue cosmic Rubik's Cube space gem hidden in the void was just like that. Appeared in his hands. At this time, the cosmic cube was still shining with a faint blue light, and it seemed that something was pulling it in this ruin. The perception is correct, another gemstone is indeed here. He nodded secretly. Yes. He's here to find gems. In his opinion, the only way to kill the man with the soul gem is to find other gems. Gems and gems can naturally be positioned with each other, which has a certain attractive effect. Especially the space gem, the action is stronger. It can be said that if you have a space gem, you can locate all the gems, as long as you have the power, you can get all the gems. And now, da-da-da. In the empty ruins, there were waves of footsteps. He walked slowly, looking at the surrounding environment. This relic is real and no one has visited it for many years. Mottled and old traces of time, a long history everywhere. Whose ruins are these? He is not interested. All he knew was that there was what he wanted. Soon, following the guidance, he arrived at a stone gate. The stone gate is old, carved with various symbols and unknown characters. Among them, there should be some kind of mechanism. This door is firmly locked and cannot be opened at all. Oh, it's just a silly trick. He chuckled, the blue square in his hand flickered slightly, and immediately, he directly opened a blue light door on the stone door. With space gems, who will open the door? He didn't enter the door either, he reached out and took a look inside, and immediately, a spirit ball fell into his hand. This spirit ball is also some kind of mechanical prop, it is very complicated, if one is not paying attention, it may be locked. Even trying to forcibly break it open from the outside will cause the spirit ball to be locked. The material of this spirit ball is special, once it is locked, there is no need to open it, even if it is violently dismantled, it is super solid metal, even throwing it into the sun is not enough to melt it. Spirit balls are special. The things contained in this spirit ball are even more special. Yes, the gemstone he wants is inside this spirit ball. If you want to get gems, you have to untie them, of course, this is for normal people. But he does not belong to the category of normal people. Right there, the space gem in his hand was shining with blue light. The blue light fell on the spirit ball, and immediately, from the space channel, a shining purple gemstone appeared. Purple gem. Power gems. The moment the purple gem fell into his hand, streaks of purple light began to spread throughout his body like electric arcs. Powerful. At this moment, he only felt that he had boundless power. Power, endless power. He felt that if he held this purple power gem, he could punch and kill some fat green man. No, it's not just as simple as punching, he can even press the green fat man on the ground and hit him with explosive hammer. Not only that, this power gem can even increase the power of other gems, making other gems more powerful. This is the power gem that amplifies everything. Even a small knife that has not been sharpened can become the sharpest magic weapon in the world when it is inlaid with a power gem. Of course, the premise is that the material of this unsharp knife is enough to carry the power of this power gem. Well, it's time to go back and take revenge. He felt the powerful force, and an excited smile appeared on his face. Without saying a word, he directly opened the space portal, and the next second the whole person disappeared. When he appeared again, he was already standing in front of Ye Qing. Yes, it is that fast. With space gems, you can travel to any place you want as long as you want in your heart. Now, he's back. With great strength, he came back for revenge. Or on the roof of the tallest building. Ye Qing looked at the evil god reappearing in front of him, and smiled. Looking at the purple gem in his hand again, he chuckled lightly. Sure enough, what he wanted was really taken by this guy. Purple gem, power gem. Not only can it give people powerful physical power, it can even strengthen the power of other gemstones, and even strengthen other powers. This is simply a heaven-defying buff bonus. Now, it's time to say goodbye to you. At this time, the evil god smiled lightly, and the purple power gem in his hand was shining brightly. In the next second, he directly clenched his fist and blasted towards Ye Qing. Boom! At this moment, the space is distorted, and the air is filled with cicadas. Surrounded by a terrifying purple light, that punch packed with extreme power directly hit Ye Qing. Strong! This power is really strong. Even Ye Qing felt the pain from the terrifying air pressure on her body, and she was a little out of breath. This is the terrifying power of the power gem. However, from the beginning to the end, Ye Qing was very calm, and even stood there without moving. Until that terrifying fist came in front of him, and when it was about to hit him, the fist suddenly stopped. Yes, just stop. That terrifying punch, a punch that could kill everything, just stopped in front of Ye Qing. Immediately, the fist was slowly released, the wrist was flipped, and spread out gently, the stone emitting a purple halo appeared in the guy's palm. Ye Qing directly reached out and took the gem. This purple power gem has just arrived. Look at that so-called evil god. Now, his eyes are dull and lifeless, as if he has lost his soul, just standing there in a daze. With a thought in Ye Qing's mind, the yellow soul gem on her forehead gradually shone with light. Immediately, I saw the so-called evil god acting smartly, backing away, looking at Ye Qing with some doubts. Even, he was still a little out of breath, with cold sweat dripping on his forehead. He looked at the purple gemstone in Ye Qing's hand with some astonishment, uncertain. You, get Xianxia, how could you have your power? He murmured, feeling unbelievable. Weird reaction, but also normal reaction. Because, before that, Ye Qing directly modified his memory and changed his thinking. The changed memory is that he held the power gem and fought Ye Qing for 300 rounds, but he was not Ye Qing's opponent at all. In the end, Ye Qing even took away the power gem. The strength is so strong that it is simply shocking. Now, do you still want to try? Ye Qing smiled and clenched the power gem in his hand. In an instant, Ye Qing's whole body was wrapped in strands of purple lines, and terrifying power surrounded him. This is power. Ultimate power. You wait. The evil god gritted his teeth, and the cosmic cube in his hand flashed a blue halo again, and he disappeared in an instant. He's off to fetch other gems. He still doesn't believe it, can't he beat it? Before he was conceited. Now, he has to collect the remaining 3 gems. When he has 4 gems, he is invincible. In the next second, he appeared directly in front of a supreme sanctuary. Inside, there is another jewel's aura. He took a deep breath and planned to enter this supreme sanctuary. However, at this moment, he suddenly froze, and his expression became uncertain. I seem to be inspired by the soul. Chapter 108. At this moment, the evil god was stunned, a little startled and uncertain, and began to doubt himself. According to his understanding of himself, it is absolutely impossible to make such an unwise move. Once you know that there is an absolute gap between yourself and the opponent, just run away without saying a word. It is even impossible for him to think about revenge. It's not that he doesn't know how to take revenge, but that it's impossible for him to seek revenge in person. He will choose to use his strength to use others as a weapon. That's his style of doing things. But now, twice. He still wants revenge? He's an ambitious schemer, not a red-eyed gambler. There is only one possibility for such a style that does not suit my own style of conduct. You are being controlled by your mind. In addition, he is very aware of the ability of the Mind Stone, so it is normal to infer it like this. Mind manipulation. The evil god's face was ugly, with gloomy eyes. He is called the evil god. In the past, he was the only one who could manipulate others, but now, it's his turn to be manipulated. Very upset. He is really upset. But he is not happy, he is also very aware of Ye Qing's strength. Unarmed, can rival him who has the power gem. No, not right. Not bare hands. He even felt that his memory had been tampered with. The guy I know is definitely not the guy's real appearance. It can only be said that the soul gem is too heaven-defying, too powerful, and it changes everything silently. And let him think it was his own idea. Terrible, really terrible. Compared with the space gem, the soul gem is even more against the sky. If I had known earlier, I would have turned the soul gem into a fake. But obviously, in this world, there is no regret medicine at all. However, it is not too late to know now. Looking at the supreme sanctuary in front of him, he had a thought, and walked in. There was a dangerous light in his eyes. He wants to brew a big plan, a big conspiracy. And at this time, on the highest rooftop. Hey! At the moment when the evil god broke free from the control of the 447 stones of the Mind Stone, Ye Qing had a thought and instantly sensed it. The eyes are a little surprised, and a little surprised good guy, as expected of the existence called the evil god, he broke free from the control of the soul gem so easily. However, this is also a combination of many factors. 1. Some courtyards away, both are also because this evil god is proficient in the way of soul bewitching. The 3. This soul gem, used to be his stuff. That's why this happens. As long as it is another person, a real reckless man, let alone break free from the mind gem, he will not even have the idea that he may be controlled by the mind. However, in any case, this guy is indeed out of the control of the Mind Stone. Now, the sky is so high that birds can fly, and the sea is wide enough to let fishes leap. Tisk. It seems that I have to go on a trip to find these gems myself. Ye Qing looked at the bright purple power gem in his hand, chuckled, stepped out, and in the next second, he just disappeared. On the empty roof, there are only 2 weird pillars and the device that opens the space wormhole. Until Ye Qing left for a long time. On this rooftop, other people appeared one after another. First came the gold and red man in battle armor. Immediately, it was the guy wearing the stars and stripes and holding a shield. And the manipulator is a hammer, who claims to be the existence of Thor. The 3 of them found the rooftop almost by smelling it. Run away? Not here. The god of thunder frowned slightly as he felt the residual breath and energy left in the field. His complexion is not very good looking. Obviously, he already knew that this disaster was caused by his evil god. This made him lose face very much. He wanted to take his ineffective younger brother back and teach him well. But now, people are running away. But there are traces of battle. The shield man wearing the stars and stripes frowned slightly as he watched the battle on the rooftop. In my mind, I subconsciously began to deduce the battle situation at that time. One party used a very violent force, and the dust on the roof was blown away by just the momentum, and coupled with the little cracks on the roof, it is conceivable that that guy is really strong to a level. However, he was so fast, his pupils shrank. He subconsciously took 2 steps forward and stood there. Here, it looks ordinary, and there is nothing strange, even, there is no crack. What did you find? Thor stepped forward and asked curiously. Very strong. However, the shield man just said that, his expression became more and more serious. Ahem, although my younger brother does like to play pranks and is called an evil god, his strength is indeed not bad. Of course, he must be worse than me. Thunder God grinned. However, the man with the shield said quietly, I mean, the person who fought with your brother is very strong. Okay. Thor raised his eyebrows, looked at the shield man in surprise, and subconsciously asked, You're not on the battlefield, how do you know? Here. The shield man pointed to the ground. Lei Shen looked around, but couldn't see anything there. Empty, not even a crack. Is this what you call strong? Really? He looked at the shield man suspiciously. At this time, I saw that the shield man took a deep breath, and said quietly, Look at the dust on the ground, 2 footprints are vaguely formed. That is to say, under the violent attack of your brother, this man is don't move, don't be afraid at all. His strength is definitely above your brother. That's it. Thor looked at the shield man suspiciously, obviously, he didn't quite believe the shield man's reasoning. He still wanted to say something, however, at this moment. Guys, look at what these are. Suddenly, a voice sounded. As soon as the two turned their heads, they saw Iron Man standing in front of the 2 pillars, looking up and down, and couldn't see why. That device has been tested by him, it is completely a simple energy transmission activation device, he can create it at the age of 13. But the truth of these 2 pillars made him a little puzzled. This pillar is obviously not something that should be on the roof, and it is incompatible with the environment of the roof. In other words, this thing was definitely created artificially later. The point is, he doesn't know what it is. The 2 also got up, stood curiously behind Iron Man, and looked at the pillar up and down. The 2 pillars look almost identical. A yellow-green tower-shaped object that looks like rubbery luster, 2.4 meters high. Other than that, there is nothing too striking about it. So, what is this thing? For a while, the Japanese, CTTB, looked at each other. The man with the shield even touched it with his hands, but he also didn't feel anything strange. Don't you have that technology, can you scan it? At this time, Thor said to Iron Man scanning. Iron Man nodded, ordering directly to his AI. In the next second, a light beam scanned the pillar from top to bottom. Data scanning, material unknown, technology content is unknown. Nerve scanning starts, detection, nerves are in a high-frequency state, maintaining extremely high activity. Conclusion, this is a brain. At this moment, with the report from the artificial intelligence on Iron Man's mech, whether it is Iron Man, Thor, or the Shield Man, at this moment, they are all silent. Is this thing a brain? Thor's voice sounded after a long time. Rao Iron Man was also full of horror, startled by the conclusion of this scan. Is this thing a brain? What are you kidding? This difference is nothing more than a pillar, how did it become a brain? Really? Did the scan go wrong? Rao was Iron Man, and he was a little skeptical, and then scanned again. But obviously, even if he scans it 10 more times, this thing should be a brain or a brain. Brain. It really is a brain. Human experimentation. The man with the stars and stripes and shield had an ugly expression on his face. Under normal circumstances, how can a pillar become a brain? Unless, it is some kind of inhuman experiment. Well, it seems that this neuron is similar to some kind of electronic communication, seems to be connected to a certain place. Suddenly, Iron Man spoke. Obviously, During this gap, he scanned more things. Although the connection of neurons is somewhat different from the information and communication of science and technology, if we use the same frequency band to investigate, we can really find that this thing is like a mobile phone signal, connecting. Can you confirm the location? The man with the stars and stripes suddenly asked. Although it's a little troublesome, it's hard not to be short this day. Iron Man was talking extremely stinky, and after a while, he suddenly said, I found it. Let's go. The Star-Spangled Banner Shield Man went downstairs without saying a word. Captain, don't you want to find him? Iron Man asked a little speechlessly. Yes. The Shield Man spoke without hesitation, and his eyes gradually became sharper. The evil god is not a good thing, and the people who made these things are not good people either. He has a sense of justice. He didn't listen to the saying that an enemy's enemy is a friend. He wants to find those two guys now. To this, Iron Man subconsciously looked at Thor. Thor shrugged, saying it didn't matter. Iron Man shook his head. In the end, he had no choice but to follow. At the same time, on the ruins of a land of nothingness. On the vast land, there were two figures advancing one after the other. The leader is a man with a handsome face, sword eyebrows, and star eyes, and a tall and straight figure. And next to him was a somewhat weird monster with a human head and a deer body. This is Ye Qing and the deer. Well. At this moment, the stag suddenly seemed to have sensed something, turned his head slightly, looked at Ye Qing, and was about to say something. Did someone find it? Ye Qing asked softly. Although it is a question, but these words are not meant for heart, it is more like asking yourself. The stag nodded subconsciously, and then told Ye Qing what happened on the rooftop. Iron Man, Thor, Captain. Ye Qing shook his head, not paying attention at all. Under normal circumstances, the strength of the three is really enough. But now, after he has the power gem and the soul gem, he is really not afraid of these three guys. Unless it's a gem, the collision with gems, and the rest, he can almost complete the abuse. Certainly. This gem cannot be used for a long time, otherwise it is easy to lose your mind and swell. However, Ye Qing is also very aware of this, and at critical moments, he will take it out and use it, and store it in a special box for the rest of the time. And now, in the box, one yellow and one purple, the two gems are shining brightly, indicating that there are other gems in this place. And in this void. If Ye Qing's guess is correct, it is the reality gem. Seriously, after Ye Qing learned what this secret realm is like, his first thought was the reality gem. The compatibility of this thing is too close to his containment world, it fits so well. Reality gems, modify reality, defy the laws of science, defy the laws of physics. This is simply another containment object. It is simply an ability that only a level 6 or even level 7 reality bender possesses. This gem is what he really wants. Chapter 109. Just in front. The low shout resounded through the void. See, at the entrance of the void, Iron Man, Captain, Thor, and even a burly, muscular monster with green skin. 4 guys suddenly landed in the void. With Iron Man pointing, at this moment, everyone saw above the nothingness land, that one person, one deer. At this moment, I saw that one person and one deer were on the nothingness land, as if they were doing something. In front of the two of them was a huge pillar, and that pillar seemed to be some kind of mechanism. The key point is that the pillar has been opened, and the difficult man is holding a ball of particles that jumps a little bit strangely. The clusters of particles sometimes converge into a solid, sometimes into a liquid, and there is no stable shape at all. However, even so, this particle is still in the hands of the man, and with some kind of force, it is forcibly condensed into a ball. Everyone saw that cluster of particles. Shield Man frowned, Iron Man pondered, Fat Green Man ababa. Only the God of Thunder looked at the particle cluster in surprise. Some familiar illusions. This is ether particles. Suddenly, Thunder God exclaimed, his eyes were full of inconceivable, even deep fear. What are ether particles? The Captain and Iron Man subconsciously asked. Obviously, they really don't know much about the strange things that exist in this universe. But looking at this Thunder God again, it seems to be very clear. Sensing the gazes of the two, Thor took a deep breath, and after a long time, he said quietly, ether particles can modify reality and change everything. Thousands of years ago, our hostile clan held this object and stirred up the 9 realms. It almost brought the universe back to darkness, but fortunately, my grandfather defeated it, and this thing was also sealed up. I thought it was a legend, but I didn't want to. Thor looked at the ether cluster with a complicated expression. Stir up the 9 realms? Return the universe to darkness. Iron Man gasped, a little shocked. Even the man with the shield was a little surprised. Everyone is looking at the particle cluster. Is this thing really that strong? Invincible? Thor said with an ugly face. Before, he felt that some enemies were not as simple as he imagined. Not to mention, there are so-called ether particles now. It can be said that the difficulty of the enemy has exceeded his imagination. Anyway, it's right if you can't compete. Hulk, smash it! However, at this moment, the roar suddenly broke out. Boom! In the next second, Iron Man, Captain, and Thor only felt a terrifying vibration from the ground. The violent wind blew past, and the eyes of the three were blurred. Immediately, they saw a green figure jumping high, blasting and killing the guy holding the ether particle. Damn it! Iron Man, Captain, and even Thor, all of them changed their expressions at this moment. This fat green man rushed forward so he couldn't die. No solution anymore. Boom! At this moment, Lei Shen was surrounded by violent thunder and lightning, and the terrifying power of Ye Qing trembled. The terrifying thunder surrounded his body, and slammed Ye Qing with a hammer. Clang! The captain even threw the shield in his hand, and then bombarded the man. Even Iron Man was not idle, the thrusters under his feet burst into light, accelerated directly to supersonic speed, and rushed towards the man in an instant. Tisk! At this time, the man holding the ether particles. Well, needless to say, this is Ye Qing. Feeling the 4 terrifying evil winds coming towards him, he shook his head helplessly. Lord God, at this time, the stag spoke softly, looking at the 4 figures, he was a little eager to try, and wanted to make a move. If these guys don't target him or his main god, then he can act as if nothing happened, as if he didn't see anything. However, if he showed hostility towards himself and his main god, then I'm sorry, he is going to do it. However, you back down first. Ye Qing shook her head lightly, and didn't let Zhou leave the town. As soon as the stag made a move, it was an instant kill. Convert it directly to a column. What's the point of that? So, he wants to see it by himself. At this point, the stag had no objection, bowed his head slightly, and took 2 steps. Boom! At the time when Ye Qing was talking to the stag, the Green Titan had already blasted to the front. The violent force descended from the sky with a terrifying wind. With a thought, Ye Qing retreated instantly. Boom! The next moment, the place where he was originally standing was smashed into a big hole by the green fat man, and even the previous pillar organ was smashed to pieces at this moment, smashed to pieces by that absolutely domineering force. So powerful, so terrifying. However, at this moment, Ye Qing has a thought. Boom! A divine hammer wrapped in a violent Ye Qing blasted towards him in an instant. Everywhere Ye Qing went, there was a smell in the air. The violent thunder and lightning bombarded everything, and the ground was blasted into big holes by the electric arc. When the hammer struck, Ye Qing tilted her head slightly, and with a thought, a purple gem appeared in her hand. The gem shone with a noble purple light, and Ye Qing could only feel a terrifying and powerful force growing in his body. At this moment, his eyes seemed to be colored with a layer of purple. Looking at the magic hammer, Ye Qing stretched out his hand directly. Boom! The hammer fell into Ye Qing's palm in an instant. Boom! At this moment, a terrifying and violent force erupted, surrounded by thunder and lightning, and Ye Qing wreaked havoc. However, the hammer stopped in Ye Qing's palm. Hiss! At this moment, Thor took a deep breath and looked at Ye Qing in disbelief. His hammer was lifted up by someone else? What is that purple light? Who the hell is this guy? At this moment, endless questions filled Thor's mind. And Ye Qing sighed. Ye Qing just felt her hands sinking. Heavy. Really heavy. It was as if a powerful force was resisting him. That powerful force wanted to tear him apart, but Ye Qing also had a power gem, so Thor's hammer couldn't kill him at all. One is absolute power, and the other is supreme magic and physical power. Ye Qing and that Thor's hammer can only be said to have reached a stalemate. Yes, it is stalemate. Instead Ye Qing grabbed Thor's hammer. But the power gem is the real absolute power. Looking at this Thor's hammer, Ye Qing's heart moved, and he started to go up. Buzz! At this moment, Thor's hammer began to vibrate, and strands of lightning power began to spread from the Thor's hammer. Crack! A clear crack sounded, and a crack appeared on the Thor's hammer visible to the naked eye. What? Thunder God was horrified, and he stretched out his hand to summon his hammer. However, the hammer landed in Ye Qing's hand, but it didn't move at all, it couldn't be summoned at all. The hammer was held in the hand by absolute power, and there was no chance of getting it back. Thor's face became more and more difficult to look at. That crack made his heart ache unceasingly, even worse than killing him. Fortunately, at this moment, whoosh! The shield pierced the sky and blasted towards Ye Qing. Clang! Ye Qing waved his hand, and the next second, the hammer directly collided with the shield. Surrounded by electric arcs, terrifying U-bow concussion, the shield and hammer were both smashed into the air, asking for flowers. Swish, swish. At this moment, rockets swooped down from the sky, bombarding Ye Qing. Ye Qing thought about it. Boom! The violent force slammed into the sky, and an extremely strong air pressure abruptly stopped the rockets. Bursts of brilliant sparks erupted in the air. Hulk, smash! The roar sounded again at this moment, and the fat green man got up, with red eyes, and charged towards Ye Qing again. That fist was wrapped in berserk power, and that terrifying, oppressive figure crushed towards Ye Qing. Buzz! However, there was a flash of purple light on Ye Qing's body. Ye Qing was fearless, punched fiercely, and clashed with the fat green man. Boom! The terrifying air wave spread, and a violent aftermath spread around Ye Qing and the fat green man, raging towards the surroundings. The violent air wave almost sent the captain and Iron Man flying. Only the God of Thunder took advantage of this opportunity, and with a move of Thor's hammer, he also quickly stepped forward, summoned Ye Qing, and blasted at Ye Qing. Although they may not have a tacit understanding when fighting, they are all existences with extremely rich combat experience. Know when is the best time, know when to call. Ye Qing frowned. 0, sure enough, it still depends on combat experience. Ye Qing thought to himself. He can't be considered a generation with rich combat experience. After all, it has only been a few days since he became the world master, and he is relying on his strong reflexes and strength to forcibly deal with these guys. It can be said that there is almost no real combat experience. It can even be said that any mid-level creature randomly drawn out of the containment area has more combat experience than him. He can react to the limit, and he can deal with the first few attacks, which can be regarded as the limit. Now, that Thor's hammer came to kill, and that green fat man was also bombarded by the camera. The two are fighting, and they are getting more and more involved. Ye Qing's speed is fast, no matter how timely the dodge is, there will be times when she will be tired of dealing with it. Not to mention, there is an Iron Man in the sky, and there is a captain approaching on the ground. 4 against 1. If it weren't for his absolute power, I'm afraid, at this moment, he has already lost. But Ye Qing also roughly tested the ability of the power gem. Now, let this battle be over. Seeing that Thor's hammer was killed by Thor again. With a thought in Ye Qing's mind, a small wire figurine appeared in her hand. Slap! Ye Qing threw the little wire man directly on top of the magic hammer. Feeling the bad wind coming from the back of his head, he turned around, and saw the ferocious face of the fat green man from the corner of his eye. With a thought, another figure appeared beside him. The former great dragon King Herux, now the great Qin dragon god General Herux. The moment Hercules appeared, his mind moved, his terrifying intuition exploded, and he punched the fat green man. At this moment, Ye Qing felt a shield attacking from his side again. Ye Qing thought about it, and immediately, another figure appeared beside him. It was a well-proportioned and muscular man with a naked upper body, countless devil face tattoos on his body, and a man holding a big black sword. This is General Ares, No 076 Abel. Clang! Responding instinctively, Abel thought, and the big black sword struck directly on the shield. The terrifying trembling sound of gold and iron resounded. Swish, swish. At this moment, another shell fell from the sky, blasting at Ye Qing. Ye Qing squinted his eyes, chuckled, and in the next second, another person appeared beside him. It was a man in a white lab coat with a majestic face, different pupils, and a top hat. This is the Apocalypse Emperor of the Containment World, Dr. Clef, who is now retreating behind the scenes. Chapter 110. At this moment, the tinsel man landed on the Thor's hammer. Crackling! The sound of the electric arc suddenly sounded, and the traces of electric current surrounded and directly landed on the little metal figurine. Sitsizi. In the past, the electric arc that smashed everything and killed everything, but now, it fell on the little wire man, but there was no reaction at all. The most important thing is that when the current passes by, the little wire man suddenly moves. It was a dead thing and suddenly stood up. The electric arc seemed to activate him. It was extremely weird. The most important thing is that the moment the little wire man was activated, he staggered up and got up, regardless of the surrounding electric arcs. Seeing that there was metal under his feet, those two little hands grabbed Thor without saying a word. Hammer on! Zi la la! At the moment that little hand landed on Thor's hammer, a thin iron wire was torn off by it. The two little hands danced, and in an instant, another wire figurine was woven by them. The newly woven wire figurine joined the wire drawing and figurine making business again. At this moment, Thunder God. He looked at the villain on Thor's hammer in bewilderment, watched his Thor's hammer disintegrate little by little, watched his Thor's hammer gradually turn into another wire villain senseless. He was completely bewildered. Thor's hammer has been with him for thousands of years, and all battles, big or small, are always against the odds. But now, it was disassembled by such an inconspicuous tinsel man? Stop! He yelled with his eyes wide open. At this moment, he didn't care about Ye Qing or Ye Qing, and waved his hand just wanting to blow that metal wire into the air. But the little wire figurine is extremely flexible, even if one of them is shot flying, there will be another one. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, 8 becomes 16. In just a blink of an eye, many metal villains had gathered densely on the small Thor's hammer. At the same time, boom! A violent air wave erupted, and the dragon god General Heracles and the fat green man punched each other fiercely. The violent air wave flew up, and the tyrannical U-bow swept everything. Boom boom boom! Immediately, the two heavyweight fighters began to violently kill each other. One is the more angry the greater the power, and the other is the reality bender, the innate power is terrifying. In a short period of time, the fight between the two was inseparable, and U-bow rolled violently, and the ground was punched out one after another. Look at that god of war, Abel! Clang clang clang! The rotating blade of the black greatsword erupted, colliding with the captain's shield on everything. They don't have that horrible visual burst. But the battle between the two is pleasing to the eye. One is an existence that has been battled for a long time and slaughtered gods in ancient times. Its moves are fatal, and their moves are all killer moves. And the other one, who also has rich fighting experience, is proficient in almost all kinds of fighting, uses his strength to fight, and has a tyrannical physique. It can be said that it is called a chess match. Abel was getting more and more excited. He had forgotten how long it had been since he had played so hard. In the containment world, there are naturally those who are stronger than him, but in terms of combat experience, so far, no one can match him. Over the years, he was either regretful or uninterested. Up to now, I finally met a stronger one. Look at that Dr. Clef. At the moment when the cannonball fell from the sky, Dr. Clef's expression froze, and he pulled out the shotgun behind him without saying a word. Bang bang bang! The shotgun fired, but before the flames were seen, the missiles were directly hit, exploded in the air, and turned into countless fireworks. Bang! Immediately, Dr. Clef raised his hand again, casually shooting into the air. Clang! The clang of refined iron suddenly sounded, and the Iron Man suddenly raised his head, surrounded by terrifying shocks, and was knocked to the ground by the shot. Did it die? Boss! Boss! A sound of alarm sounded in the iron suit, and a sound of call spread. However, Iron Man at this moment has his eyes closed tightly, and he really passed out. He is a mortal who can stand shoulder to shoulder with a god. But he is a mortal after all. A bullet, a little collision, is enough to damage him. Concussion and coma are all good. Number. The commander lost consciousness, activated the emergency plan, and is hosting the battlesuit. The faint electronic voice sounded. Immediately, I saw that Iron Man stood up unsteadily again, and finally stood still. The blue electronic eyes gradually turned scarlet. Oh? Artificial intelligence? It's interesting. Dr. Clef looked at the Iron Man, his eyes were full of excitement, and the corners of his mouth curled into a smile. He is not a scientist, he used to be just an agent. However, after so many years in the containment world, even if he is not a scientist, he is much better than other creatures and scientists in the containment world. He rubbed out the shotgun with bare hands, such as pistols, rifles, submachine guns, rockets, Gatling, etc. Whether it is a heavy weapon or a light weapon, it is all rubbed out by his hands. In the containment world, he is not only the Emperor of Heaven, but also a scientist and a military expert. Nowadays, when I see artificial intelligence and see that steel mech, it is a lie to say that I am not excited. FFLX. He took out a box from his arms, and immediately opened the box, and began to take out various weapons from the box. 1 Gatling, 3 RPG rockets, 6 rifles, 12 shotguns. Boxes of ammunition were stacked together by him. Then, aim at the Iron Man managed by the system. God bless, I hope you can still be alive and kicking after eating my Vulcan Gatling. Dr. Clef smiled excitedly, Gatling's black gun pointed at Iron Man, and immediately. Buzz. The barrel starts to spin, and the next second. Boom boom boom. The bullets began to tilt, and the flames spewed out. Countless bullets seemed to be like rain, tilting towards Iron Man. And the moment Dr. Clef took out his weapon, the artificial intelligence had already sensed something was wrong. The system naturally knows what a thermal weapon is. However, as far as he judged, no matter how accurate the marksmanship of the person in front of him was, he was not as mobile as him. Even if a few bullets landed on him, it wouldn't hurt. Don't look at Gatling as a heavy weapon. But this steel battlesuit has a stronger defensive power. Now it has been iterated 43 times, and it is Mark 43. Almost all materials are the best. It is bulletproof and compressive, and it has strong ductility and even more plasticity. Generally speaking, when the bullet hits the body, the people inside the battle armor don't even feel it at all. Unless there is something as powerful as a shotgun, and then it hits the head unexpectedly, this will cause a shock, and then the host will be unconscious. But now, system hosting has a different meaning. It can maximize the various effects on the mecha. Seeing the bullet coming slanted. Did it die? A series of scans came, and even without human eye recognition, the system directly began to judge and began to deploy action trajectories. Whoosh! The pushers on the palms under the feet were activated, and the steel suit was lifted into the air in an instant, bypassing Gatling's bullet in an instant. However, bang bang bang! In the next second, there was a bang from the heart of the steel suit, and the sound of metal friction and collision continued. Just after taking off, he was directly bombarded by the bullet, and had no strength to fight back at all. Rao is the system, it's all fooled at this moment. Obviously, after calculation, he can easily dodge it, but... Boom boom boom! At this moment, countless bullets slanted down, and the iron suit was like a live target, immobilized by the terrifying recoil and violent kinetic energy. Totally crushed. Accompanied by the shock, Iron Man finally woke up faintly. What's the situation now? Iron Man resisted the tingling pain in his head and asked in a deep voice. Shua. In the next second, he saw the outside picture through the high-definition camera screen. Well, a person, holding Vulcan Gatling, the barrel of the gun rotates rapidly, bombarding him indiscriminately, forcing output. The bullets seemed to be free of money, and fell on him like raindrops. It was originally an extremely smooth battle armor, but now it has become pitted, with 4 seats. If it wasn't for the material of his battle armor, it would have been dismantled long ago. But obviously, if he continues to fight like this, even if his battle armor is not damaged, it will be almost the same. Due to the vibration, various internal parts are slightly loose, and even some lines are also short-circuited. Iron Man's expression froze. Without saying a word, a thruster appeared behind him, and flames spewed out, and he began to forcibly stand up. Boss, I have to remind you that if you stand up forcibly, the damage to the armor may be even greater. At this time, the mechanical and electronic sound of the system sounded. Sometimes, you just need to give it a go. Iron Man said softly, with a dignified expression, and the moment he got up, the left pusher suddenly went out, and the entire armor turned suddenly due to inertia. Just at the moment of such a turn, for a moment, the steel suit escaped from the control of Vulcan Gatling. Iron Man only felt a lightness in his body, and immediately, the one-side extinguished thruster under his feet ignited again. Boom! That red and gold light rushed towards Dr. Clef in an instant, the palm cannon in his palm was aimed at Dr. Clef, and the light flickered. Boom! 2 energy beams bombarded Dr. Clef in an instant. Dr. Clef's expression froze, and his keen and terrifying fighting intuition reappeared. Before his brain could give an order, his body rolled forward and appeared behind Iron Man. Boom! However, Dr. Clef was able to dodge, but Tring's Vulcan cannon fell on the spot. 2 palm cannons directly blasted the Gatling Vulcan cannon into residue. However, at this moment, Dr. Clef, who turned around, directly took out 2 rockets. Whizzing! The 2 rockets bombarded Iron Man with terrifying tail flames. Boom! The flames were dazzling, like fireworks, and exploded into countless streamers. At this moment, in the land of nothingness, the battle became more and more intense. That's really a game where you meet your opponent, and you meet a good talent. Well, except Thor. Today, most of Thor's hammer has been transformed into that metal complex. Oh no! Because the number is enough, all the tinsel villains have been transformed into tinsel adults. The Wire Man is 2 meters tall and has a burly build. And because it is made of Thor's hammer, it is extremely hard, and it is surrounded by lightning. Thor was completely dumbfounded. Is it okay if his weapon becomes an enemy? The point is, the weapon that accompanied him for thousands of years was dismantled just like that. What the hell is this? At this moment, not only Thor has such doubts. The captain fought against the god of war Abel, but he was too bent and speechless. He prides himself on being a super soldier at the limit of humanity. His physique surpassed that of ordinary people by an unknown number of times. Agile and experienced in combat. But this person in front of him has even more terrifying combat experience 5.6, and his physique is also abnormally strong, at least twice as strong as him. The combat experience has been crushed, and the physique has also been crushed. He is really suffering beyond words. And the fat green man is the same. Facing the level 3 power type reality bender, Dragon God General Herix, the more he beats, the more aggrieved he becomes, the more he beats, the angrier he gets, the greater his strength, and the bigger his body. But, no matter how big he is and how strong he is, the other side is like cheating, because his strength is just a section bigger than him. Then there is that Iron Man, who is extremely aggrieved. Facing Dr. Clef, who looked like a normal person, he felt helpless. No matter what weapon, no matter what, the bullets, rockets, and howitzers can always fall on him, making him ashamed and terrified. Can't fight anymore. This one is really unbeatable. Regarding this, Ye Qing just watched all this with a chuckle, and didn't intend to intervene. However, at this moment, a sudden change occurred. Buzz! Not far from Ye Qing, a blue space door suddenly opened. Just then, from the door of space, a tall and burly figure with a fierce face, a huge chin, purple skin, and a golden and blue battle armor was walking out slowly. Purple sweet potato essence. The most important thing is that this purple sweet potato essence still wears a golden glove on its left hand. And on that glove, there are 3 jewels inlaid on the thumb, middle finger, and little finger respectively. 1 green, 1 blue, 1 orange. 3 gems, infinite gauntlets. Purple sweet potato essence, here we come. Chapter 111. Purple sweet potato essence. Infinity gloves. Ye Qing's eyes narrowed instantly. Of course, it's not just the purple sweet potato essence, behind that guy, there's also a little dear evil spirit. Just after the soul gem control failed, Ye Qing didn't know what the evil god was doing. However, you can probably guess it. Just the kind of conspirators who will definitely find a gun, a powerful gun for me. And this purple sweet potato essence is obviously the spear of the evil god. The last 3 gems, it seems, are here with you. At this time, the purple sweet potato essence looked at the 3 shining gems on the glove, and then looked at Ye Qing, with a very flat and relaxed tone. Although he only has 3 gems, he is extremely confident in his own strength. A time gem, a space gem, and a soul gem. Isn't it easy to hit a dozen power gems, reality gems, and mind gems? Look at that guy again, a weak ordinary person. What's there to be afraid of? I'm also short of the last 3 gems, just in time, and they're here. Ye Qing also chuckled, and with a thought, the soul gem was directly attached to her forehead. The power gem nestled in the fist. And the reality gem in the form of ether particles, under Ye Qing's efforts, finally condensed into a red gemstone, which was held in Ye Qing's other palm. He doesn't have the infinity gauntlet to carry the power. But with his epic system, barely controlling 3 gems is more than enough. At this time, along with the appearance of purple potato essence and little deer Thulhu. The two sides who were still fighting before also stopped at this moment, and everyone looked at purple sweet potato essence. The powerful power displayed by the purple sweet potato essence is awe-inspiring, especially the gloves. The 3 gems are shining and dazzling. 25 The Captain and Iron Man are still inside without knowing it, but Thor's heart is heavy. Gems, he murmured. Do you know what that is? The Captain turned his head to look at Thor and asked subconsciously. At this moment, even Iron Man turned his head to look at Thor. As for the green fat man? Abba. If I'm not wrong, it should be the strongest force in the universe, which should represent time, space, soul, mind, reality, and power. When these 6 gems gather in everything, then, the holder you only need to snap your fingers lightly, and you can destroy half of the life in the universe. Thor said, his eyes became more serious. However, as soon as these words came out, the presence was terrifyingly quiet and silent. Everyone looked at Thanos in horror, and looked at Yet. These 2 guys, each holding 3 gems. Doesn't it mean that whoever wins today, everything in this universe is in their hands? Facing such a terrifying enemy, how to win? How to win? This is an absolute gap. No matter how strong the enemy is, let's fight. The Captain said in a deep voice, his eyes were sharp, and his eyes were full of absolute belief. Captain, you have to look at it too, how can you fight this? Iron Man smiled wryly. Even if he had absolute confidence in himself, how would they fight against such a powerful and incomprehensible enemy? There's no chance of winning at all. Besides, let's take a look at their current experience. He was completely overwhelmed by the guy with the hot weapon. No matter how high his technology was, it was useless. Thor's hammer of Thor has abruptly turned into a metal titan, and it is still the enemy's metal titan. Without the thunder of Thor's hammer, the combat power has been cut by more than half. Looking at the Captain and the green fat man. One was suppressed by the enemy with absolute combat experience and couldn't hold his head up, and the other was suppressed by the enemy with absolute strength. In the past, whatever cards other people had, they also had the green fat man. But now, the green fat man doesn't work anymore. This is still Ye Qing's side. The point is, the very extraordinary and noble little deer next to Ye Qing hasn't made a move yet, and now, there is another Zi Xiaojing and Xiaolution. How to fight this? No matter how you look at these 3 parties, their strength is also the weakest. Without gems, how to participate in this battle between gems? Even if there is a real fight, there may not even be a 1,000th chance of winning. With such a slim chance of winning, where did the Captain get his confidence? If you can't win, you have to fight, for the sake of all mankind, for the entire universe, the Captain said, subconsciously clenching his fists. But apparently, no matter what they think. At this time, neither Ye Qing nor purple sweet potato essence took them seriously. They were right. This is a battle between gems and gems. Ordinary people, even gods, can't resist the power zone of this gem. Any gem can beat those so-called gods. The strength of gems can be seen. You have a lot of subordinates, and they are all good. At this time, purple sweet potato Jing looked at Ye Qing, and then at the other people around Ye Qing, and said. Especially Stags. This is the only existence he can't see through. That mysterious and unknown power, Rao, he frowned a little. Coupled with Ye Qing who has 3 gems, there is no doubt that once again, it is absolutely extremely difficult to collect all the gems. Hehe, your subordinates are also very good. You even found a power gem for me. Ye Qing smiled and looked at the evil deer next to the purple sweet potato spirit. However, at this moment, the evil deer god looked at Ye Qing with an extraordinarily gloomy expression. The so-called enemy is extremely jealous when meeting each other, he can't wait to eat his flesh and blood. But there is no way, he is not an opponent. If you want revenge, you will naturally find a more powerful existence. He and purple sweet potato essence already have cooperation. After defrauding the time stone from a certain bald man, he used the time stone and the space stone to find the purple sweet potato essence, and finally, with the purple sweet potato essence, he found the soul stone. After going around and around, finally came to this place of nothingness, looking for the other 3 gems. As long as the 6 gems are all in place, then all problems will not be a problem. And now, hearing Ye Qing's words, purple sweet potato essence just glanced at Xiaoluthulhu, and didn't say much. He lightly touched the green time gem on the glove, and said lightly, I don't think it's necessary to fight anymore. I'll watch. There are countless futures, and the final result is that I will win. Time gem, control the power of time, completely control the past, present, and future. Even time travel, time acceleration, time reversal, time confusion, time loop, etc. can be performed. In a word, it is related to all time. As long as you hold the green time gem, you can control all time. With the time stone, no matter how strong and weird your strength is, there will be a solution. Time gem, an artifact that can be repeated infinitely, infinite trial and error. Time gem. Ye Qing narrowed his eyes slightly. To be honest, this time gem is indeed a bit tricky. In the world, the most buggy ability is time. The weirdness of time is absolutely beyond imagination. Before you know it, you may even be tricked. But Ye Qing still shook his head. He didn't believe Purple Sweet Potato Jing's call at all. What does it mean to see countless futures, and what does it mean to lose every time? Everyone has 3 infinity stones, why should they lose? Besides, he still has the terrifying whole card of the stag. Supreme Divinity, I am not joking with you. He still doesn't believe that the Purple Sweet Potato Essence can see the future of the stag? The stag, the Supreme Divinity, although parody is the most rubbish Supreme Divinity. But not everyone can come forward and point fingers. Killing everything in seconds is really not a joke. Ye Qing doesn't even want to talk nonsense with Purple Sweet Potato Essence. It's useless to talk, let's do it. Let me see the power of time gems, space gems, and soul gems. Ye Qing said, and for a while, he became interested. He really wanted to experience the battle between the two sides. Although his combat experience may be lacking, it doesn't matter. So what if you lack combat experience? Hit until you don't want to hit, just put the contents. Most importantly, he still has the reality gem in his hand. He doesn't believe that the reality gem can't fight the time gem. There are also the soul gem and the power gem, which are also 2 extremely powerful forces. As for Purple Sweet Potato Essence, he buzz. In the next second, the dazzling yellow mind gem on his forehead was activated, and an orange beam shot at the purple sweet potato in an instant. Buzz. However, the purple potato stepped out with a precise step, surrounded by blue light, and immediately disappeared, and when he reappeared, he was already standing behind Ye Qing. With a thought, Ye Qing clenched her fists, surrounded by purple light, a terrifying power erupted, killing Xianxia in an instant. Boom! Purple Sweet Potato Essence clenched his fist instantly, and also confronted Ye Qing with a bang. The violent airflow blew away, and surrounded by the purple light, the Purple Sweet Potato retreated 3 steps in a row. One punch, high and low. In the face of absolute power, no matter how strong the Purple Potato Essence is, it cannot compare to Ye Qing. This is the terrifying thing about absolute power. However, at this moment, Ye Qing suddenly felt the anomaly coming from time. Purple Sweet Potato Essence stepped forward, while he retreated. Before he clenched his fist and blasted to kill, at this moment, the purple power gem in his palm just disappeared. Slap! The dazzling purple power gem fell on the index finger of the Purple Sweet Potato glove. OM! At this moment, a powerful 610 power erupted, the 4 gemstones restrained and lifted each other, and a terrifying power spread from the left arm to the whole body. Rao Zishujing has a tyrannical physique, and at this moment, she is a little out of breath. Powerful. Strong. If it wasn't for these gloves and the 4 infinity gems, he wouldn't be able to handle it. The first one. Purple Sweet Potato Jing murmured, and then, looking at Ye Qing, said lightly, there are 2 more. Tisk, time goes back, time stops. Ye Qing looked at the empty right hand, a little speechless, and shook his head amusedly. Sure enough, the power of time is the weirdest. However, the weirdness is the weirdness. If you want to talk about the real bugs against the sky, you have to count. Buzz. At this moment, in Ye Qing's hand, the red reality gem faintly shone red. Immediately, everything around began to dissipate, and everything that seemed beautiful turned into a dream at this moment. As far as Ye Qing is concerned, all unfavorable factors, all unfavorable existence to him, are false. He directly modifies the reality, modifying the reality to the moment when he has not lost the power gem. Ye Qing only felt a movement in his mind, and immediately, the power gem reappeared in Ye Qing's right hand. Looking at the purple sweet potato gloves, the reality gem that was already inlaid in place has disappeared now, as if it had never been inlaid. Reality gems, modify reality. You have seen countless futures, but I lost. Ye Qing looked at purple sweet potato essence, and the faint, chilling, creepy voice sounded again, however, those countless futures that can lose are all illusory, and only I can win the future is reality. Hey! Purple potato essence frowned slightly. Then, see you. Crack! Ye Qing snapped his fingers lightly. The red gemstone of reality flickered again. Reality, at this moment, is modified again. And the modified content is slap. Ye Qing put the infinity gauntlet on his hand. In the face of the power to modify reality, no matter how big the glove is, it is still in Ye Qing's hands at this moment, and even the size is very suitable. Such is the power to warp reality. He knows the ability to distort reality better than anyone else. FFLX. I am the reality. Ye Qing raised his head slightly, looking down at the purple sweet potato. Essence. Chapter 112. The infinity gauntlet fell into his hand. 6 infinity stones are embedded in it. At this moment, a terrifying force, terrifying radiation, spread from the glove throughout the whole body. The body seemed to be passing through an electric current, and a surge of power that seemed to know everything began to brew. The 6 color rays of light surrounded Ye Qing's body. Omniscient. At this moment, Ye Qing only felt as if she had obtained the power of omniscience and omnipotence. In one thought, he can see the past and the future. With a thought, he can create everything and destroy everything. In an instant, he can go anywhere and modify everything. This is the power under the blessing of 6 infinite gems. Ye Qing felt the growing strength, and at this moment, she even felt uncontrollable. No, not feeling. It should be said that it is a little uncontrollable. He can still control the power of the 3 gems, allowing him to keep his mind clear and have his own independent thinking. But now, directly from 3 gems to 6 gems. The growing power made him feel lost in it. Sink into strength, sink into mightiness. His eyes were in a trance, and his consciousness was a little unconscious. The power is too strong. This is simply not something he can control with his current strength. However, at this moment, a force of the world wandered in the body, and the force of the world began to protect Ye Qing's sea of consciousness, and began to protect Zonqing's altar. The Lingtai was a little bit clearer, and Ye Qing's eyes gradually became clearer at this moment. Only by keeping the Lingtai clear can we control the power. Otherwise, he will only be reduced to a puppet of that powerful force in the end, a puppet of those 6 gems. Hey! After a long time, Ye Qing let out a long breath. He looked at the infinity gauntlet in his hand, his eyes full of complex emotions. What a terrifying force! Even he couldn't control it. But any ordinary person will either be eroded into an idiot by this powerful force, or directly reduced to a puppet, a monster who only knows how to kill. Of course, not only because of the power of the world, but also because of the infinite gauntlet itself. This infinite glove itself also has the effect of controlling gems, allowing the user to control it more freely. And at this time, Zishujing frowned and looked at the empty left hand, and then looked gloomily at the infinity gauntlet on Ye Qing's left hand. Gone. His infinity gauntlet is gone. What was that before? The power of another infinity stone? What gem is that? That red glow, that's reality gem? Reality gems, modify reality, modify everything. Reality is in front of him, playing with it like a toy. This is the power of the reality gem. Why? He frowned, looking at Ye Qing in confusion. He has seen countless futures, but no matter which future, he is the one to win. But now, he lost in such a muddle-headed way? Even the infinity gauntlets and infinity stones were taken away? He wondered now exactly why. Why? Regarding this, Ye Qing chuckled, the power of the infinity gem itself is full of countless variables. No matter how many possibilities you see, no matter how many futures you see, there are still several possibilities. Several futures are beyond your control. Take control, you can't meet. Infinity gems are a bug among bugs. For infinite gems to infinite gems, it only depends on the characteristics and settings. If purple sweet potato Jing got the reality gem today, Ye Qing might lose. The reality gem is really too heaven-defying and too buggy. At this time, upon hearing Ye Qing's words, he nodded with emotion, I see. Immediately, the next second. Buzz. On his wrist, green halos slowly emerged. At this moment, the world seemed to stop, and everything around him entered a certain realm. Immediately, Ye Qing saw that his left hand should be wearing the infinity gauntlet inlaid with 6 gems, but now it is empty. The mind gem was attached to his forehead again, the reality gem was held in his left hand, and the power gem was held in his right hand. Look at the purple sweet potato essence. On the empty left hand, the infinity gauntlet was put on again. It is also inlaid with time gems, space gems, and soul gems. But at this time, the gem of time is emitting a faint light. This is time loop. Ye Qing's pupil shrank, and she subconsciously frowned. He secretly thought of trouble. Sure enough, time is the weirdest thing. No matter how powerful you are, once the time loop field is created by the time gem, then even an ant has a chance to kill a god. I'm sorry, but all of this was within my expectations. At this moment, Purple Sweet Potato Jing looked at Ye Qing and said with a faint smile. Controlling the power of time is really good. Once he has mastered the time, he has unlimited opportunities for trial and error. So what if Ye Qing modifies reality to get all the infinity stones? As long as he is not satisfied, the time loop will continue until he is satisfied. Did you come here to brush the boss? Ye Qing looked at Purple Sweet Potato Essence speechlessly. He couldn't figure it out. For such an existence as Purple Sweet Potato Essence, it still uses this kind of method? Time loop? This is so. Do you think I'm Dormammu? The time gem is really against the sky. Damn, the upper limit is too high. Perhaps the only thing that can compete with the time gem is the reality gem. But to decide the winner, Ye Qing just wants to say, it's hard. He suddenly thought of something, and with a thought, the reality gem in his hand shone red. However, at this moment, the voice of the Purple Sweet Potato Essence suddenly sounded, you are not thinking about using the power of the reality gem to distort reality, get the infinity gauntlet and use the time gem to break the time loop, right? Ye Qing squinted at Purple Sweet Potato Essence. Not to mention, he really thought so. However, Purple Sweet Potato Essence shook his head and said, it's useless, in my setting, once the infinity gauntlet falls into your hands, the time loop will start. This is an endless loop. Ye Qing didn't even have time to use the power of the time gem, and the time loop restarted. Even if he gets the equipment, it will be reset. Archived belongs to yes. I really became a boss, waiting to be pushed by the player Purple Sweet Potato? What the hell, isn't this an exercise in mentality? Ye Qing only felt a toothache. So FG speechless. Then such a player, how should I fight this boss? Even if the Purple Sweet Potato Essence is killed 1,000 times, 10,000 times, the final result is still the same. Pole Ye Qing's eyes narrowed suddenly, and in the next second, a red light flashed suddenly, reality was distorted and modified at this moment. The infinite gauntlet worn on Purple Sweet Potato Jing's hand suddenly disappeared. At the same time, the infinity gauntlet suddenly appeared on Dr. Clef's left hand beside Ye Qing. Just the right size and the gems shine. Buzz. A terrifying, extremely powerful force began to fill Dr. Clef's body. That kind of power is intoxicating and intoxicating. Fortunately, these are 3 gems after all, not 6 gems. Dr. Clef came back to his senses only after being in a trance for a while. He looked at the infinity gauntlet in his hand and clicked his tongue on the helmet. When you move your thoughts, you can control time, control space, and even modify your soul and create it. Just the power of 3 gems. Dr. Clef even felt that with his strength, he could even beat the gatekeeper and modify the soul of the gatekeeper. Even Qin Shuang would not have a problem hitting him. This is the power increase brought by the 3 gems, it is so strong that it is against the sky. Of course, he wants to belong to him to think so, how strong the specific strength is, then it is unknown. Now, he looked at the infinity gem in his hand, and then recalled everything that happened before. With a thought, the next second, on the infinity gauntlet, the green gem was shining brightly, dazzling. In the void, an invisible force seemed to be directly broken at this moment. The domain of the time loop was completely disintegrated. Even, a new time loop field has been generated. However, this new time loop field is not headed by Purple Sweet Potato Essence, but by Dr. Clef. You. Purple Sweet Potato Essence looked at Ye Qing in astonishment, and then at Dr. Clef. Gloves gone again. The point is, this glove was given to his subordinates by Ye Qing? You trust your subordinates that much? Purple Sweet Potato Jing frowned and looked at Ye Qing. He didn't understand, why did Ye Qing trust her subordinates so much? These are 3 infinity stones. Moreover, with the addition of the 3 infinite gems of the infinite gauntlet, it can perfectly display the calendar area of the infinite gems. The most important thing is that, among them, there is also a time gem. The power of the time gem can be understood just by watching the previous confrontation. But now, Wei Wei just transferred the infinity gauntlet to the underling without any hesitation? He really couldn't figure it out. How dare Ye Qing do it? Isn't he afraid that his subordinates will turn against him after gaining such a powerful force? Could it be that Ye Qing is so confident that he can hold back his subordinates who possess the 3 gems of the infinity gauntlet? He also trusts his men. This is the foundation upon which loyalty is built. It is not a problem for 1 or 2 gems to fall into the hands of his subordinates. However, 3 unlimited gems, that will not work. Because, the power of the 3 infinite gems already represents the ability to fight against the master. Trust is also limited. But Ye Qing completely subverted his common sense. Let alone subordinates, they are brothers, even father and son. In the face of such power, it is also possible to turn against each other. This is why he is so confident that after Ye Qing gets his infinity gauntlet and 3 infinity gems, he will enter the time loop. Even, there are more and more detailed settings. He also patched to prevent Ye Qing from taking advantage of loopholes and so on. But he just didn't set what would happen if others got the infinity gauntlet. Before the time loop, there are 2 points. 1. He lost the infinity gauntlet and lost 3 infinity stones. 2nd, Ye Qing gets the infinity gauntlet and gets 3 infinity stones. Then, it will enter the time loop. But now, one condition is met, but the second cannot be met. Unable to enter the time loop, and even cracked the time loop by Dr. Klee. So, now, he really lost the infinity gauntlet and 3 infinity gems. Anyway, no matter what, he still couldn't understand why Ye Qing trusted such a subordinate. Why trust him? Facing the puzzled eyes of Purple Sweet Potato Essence, Ye Qing just chuckled and said lightly, because, I created them. I am their creator god. I am the Lord of the world. Chapter 113. God of Creation? Lord of the World? At this moment, Purple Sweet Potato Jing looked at Ye Qing in a daze. Not to mention that he didn't understand what it meant. Even Iron Man, Captain, Thor Fatty Green, who were not very present, couldn't figure out what Ye Qing was talking about. I'm afraid he's not a lunatic, is he? It was the only thought that crossed their minds. Who in this world dares to call himself the god of creation, because the world was created? But the person in front of him is an extremely mad king, extremely arrogant, brazenly calling himself the Lord of the world, god of creation? They are in awe. Just looking at Ye Qing's expression, and then looking at Dr. Clef, it seems that what Ye Qing said is the truth, what he said is the truth. For a while, everyone was a little surprised and uncertain. Could it be that what Ye Qing said is true? Is Ye Qing really some creator god? What kind of world master is it really? Oh? I don't know the god of creation, and I don't know the Lord of the world. At this time, Ye Qing was also slightly taken aback when he saw the reaction of Purple Potato Jing, Iron Man and others. This secret world is really different from other small worlds. Could it be that this secret realm world is some kind of naturally formed world, or is it a parallel world, a parallel universe? What god of creation? What world lord? Zishu Jing frowned and asked subconsciously. Xianxia Shen and the others knew that although the words of the world lord were a bit weird, they could probably understand what they meant. However, the creator god they know is definitely not the image of Ye Qing. Anyway, it's definitely not Ye Qing. Just looking at Ye Qing like this, it seems that there is something else to say. They are all puzzled. For a while, Ye Qing didn't know how to explain, nor did she want to explain, to be honest. He was really curious about this secret world. He looked to Dr. Clef. Dr. Clef understood, and handed the infinity gauntlet to Ye Qing without saying a word. Ye Qing looked at the infinity gauntlet, and also directly inlaid the remaining 3 gems on it, and put it on again. Buzz. The familiar force came again. That is the power to observe everything and see everything. Buzz. On the thumb, the green gemstone emitted 390 degrees of light and the surrounding scenes began to change rapidly with the power of time. Time begins to go backwards, and in the blink of an eye, thousands of years have passed. Look around. In the future void, thousands of years ago, there was a prosperous civilization, and there were elves with pointed ears walking everywhere. These are the clan that Thor's grandfather once defeated. It's not this time. Ye Qing pondered, and immediately, the green gem shone again. The surrounding scenes changed rapidly again, and in the blink of an eye, it was another tens of millions of years of time going backwards. Countless streamers flashed before my eyes. Everyone can only see that the glorious elves have regressed from a prosperous civilization to the city-state era, to the tribal era, and to an era that has not yet evolved. Even, in the end, on this nothingness land, trees became forests, and vegetation was everywhere. In the end, the land of nothingness began to become barren again, a world of ice and snow, the sky filled with fire, and it became a land of jeopardy, without any observable life. This is, the most distant ancient times, the source of the origin of life. This is already an era that I don't know how many years ago. ITO. The time is wrong. Ye Qing pondered, and looked at the void of the universe again, with the thought, time went backwards again. Those tens of millions of years, billions of years, passed in the blink of an eye. The stars under my feet began to disappear, and everything around me became nothingness. Finally. That was in the void hundreds of billions of years ago. Here, there is no time, no space, no up, down, left, right, front and back. Here is nothingness. In front of him, there was only one that was so huge that some couldn't see its shape clearly, and even didn't even know what it was. In the void, only 6 light spots flickered slowly. And those 6 light spots are red, green, blue, orange, yellow, and purple, corresponding to the 6 infinity stones. They seem to exist forever, like the universe itself, like the world itself. This is, the origin of the universe. At this moment, purple sweet potato essence, Fanthulhu, Thor, Iron Man, Captain, Green Fatty, and even Ye Qing and his subordinates all felt fascinated looking at the void of the universe. Although not gorgeous, it is a fantasy, CFDJ, official. They seem to have witnessed the appearance of the beginning of the universe, and saw everything. Is this how the infinity stones are formed? It turns out that in such a distant past, infinity stones already existed. What is this guy looking for? Everyone looked at Ye Qing again, and for a moment, they were a little puzzled, and some didn't understand. Well, there is no world master. Ye Qing looked at the huge figure and frowned again. Yes, he just wants to use the power of the time gem to go back to everything in the past, and he just wants to see if there is a world lord in this world. What kind of world master can breed such a secret world? But now, it can only be said that he found nothing, that he didn't find what he wanted at all. Or is there really no world lord in this secret realm world? It is quite reasonable not to have a world master. After all, this secret realm is really huge, even as large as the universe. There is also life on the distant planet who does not know how many light years away. In the depths of the universe, there are countless gods. If it was really created by the World Lord, how strong is the World Lord? In reality, at least it is a true godlike existence, and its strength is definitely no less than that of Daozu, Sun Huang's ancestor. However, without the World Lord, how would the universe be formed? It can't really be a parallel universe, a parallel world, can it? However, how did the Death Star key to enter this parallel world appear? How was it able to be transmitted to this parallel world? Everything is full of unknowns, and everything is confusing. Everything is full of contradictions and weirdness. Buzz. In the next second, the surrounding scene flashed green, and everything returned to its original state. Everyone stood on the ground of nothingness again. Everything before was like a dream, making people feel in a trance. And indeed, Ye Qing didn't travel through time and go back to the past, but just went back in time and saw the pictures of the past. Really travel through time, but also solve the paradox problem. He didn't want to be so troublesome. Of course, it's not a big deal. At this moment, Ye Qing was just lost in thought. You won, it's destiny, you can do whatever you want. At this moment, Purple Sweet Potato Essence's voice sounded. He is free and easy. Knowing that in his current situation, he is not an opponent with 6 infinite gems Ye Qing at all. Even if he rushed up, it would only be death. Rather than dying endlessly, it is better to admit defeat openly. Oh. Ye Qing raised his head, looked at Purple Sweet Potato Essence, chuckled lightly, and said, "You are very good, are you willing to leave this world and join my god system? This purple sweet potato essence hesitated. For a moment, she didn't know how to speak. Join the gods? What is this operation again? Solicit yourself? He never thought that he would be recruited one day. Dr. Clef and the others also turned their heads slightly, looking at the purple sweet potato essence. They looked up and down the purple sweet potato essence, examining. If this purple sweet potato spirit really agrees to be recruited, then she will really be a companion from now on. Speaking of purple sweet potato essence, strength is definitely there. That domineering aura that looks down on the world like a king, coupled with that terrifying physique. Even if there are no infinite gems and infinite gloves, they definitely belong to the ranks of the strong. It's just that the strong belong to the strong, but they couldn't figure out why Ye Qing would choose to recruit such a guy. You know, when they participated in the plane war before, they encountered many strong people. But Ye Qing never took the initiative to solicit during the war. Now, he made an exception and took the initiative to recruit that Zi. Is there anything special about this purple sweet potato essence? Anyway, they can't see it. However, this is the decision of the Xianxia god, so they naturally have no way to make irresponsible remarks. They just looked at purple sweet potato Jing silently, waiting for purple sweet potato Jing to reply. Likewise, Ye Qing is also waiting for purple sweet potato extract's reply. The reason why Ye Qing recruited purple sweet potato essence was because the purple sweet potato essence was considered a talent. On the other hand, it is because of fate and luck. Yes. The moment Ye Qing saw the purple sweet potato essence, he saw the power of luck and destiny in him. He seemed to be favored by fate, with the destiny added to his body, and a lot of power in the world. He was simply the child of luck. Even if he is not the son of luck, he is also the villain of luck. Of course, it's not just Violaracia who have luck. Iron Man, Thor, Captain, and Fatty Green also have varying degrees of luck. Iron Man has the most, followed by Thor, then Lu Fat, and finally Captain. They can all be regarded as the children of luck, favored by fate. So, it's the same with you. Would you like to join my god system? Enter my world, get out of the shackles of this world, and see the real big universe? See the real reality. Ye Qing looked at Iron Man and the others again. Iron Man and the others frowned and looked at each other. For a moment, they didn't know what to say. This can be said to be unceremonious. What does it mean to see the real big universe? See real reality? Well, let me interrupt. What I want to say is, if we refuse. Iron Man said suddenly. Ye Qing looked at Iron Man indifferently. He cherishes his talent and doesn't mind being a wolf. Understood. Iron Man smiled mischievously, and frowned for a while, not knowing what to say. They have seen Ye Qing's strength and Ye Qing's weirdness. Strong is really strong. It's just that if you can't beat it, you join, isn't that a bit? The purple sweet potato essence is okay, especially the captain. He has an upright nature, so he can't see some weird things, so he still has a certain degree of resistance to Ye Qing. An enemy is an enemy. He has been teaching with Hydra for so many years, has he ever seen him join Hydra? Join if you can't beat it. Ridiculous? Not only the captain, but even Thor is quite resistant. He looked at Ye Qing with some resentment, and then glanced at Ye Qing, who was surrounded by Ye Qing, made of ulu metal, and surrounded by electric lights, and he was even more resentful. My Thor's hammer. He opened his mouth. If you want, don't said Thor's hammer, Storm Axe can send you. Ye Qing said lightly. Now, with the 6 gems in his hand, it is no exaggeration to call him the Supreme. Storm Tomahawk. Thunder God was surprised. At this moment, his heart suddenly moved. Although I don't know what this Storm Axe is, but what Ye Qing said, could it be wrong? I want to know, what is the so-called world and the so-called God system in your mouth? At this moment, Purple Sweet Potato Jing suddenly spoke, looking at Ye Qing with burning eyes. That's a bigger stage. It's not limited to this world. Plane wars, collisions of different civilizations, sophisticated science fiction, passionate fantasy, elegant fairy tales, gorgeous magic. Only you can't think of it, nothing you can't see. This is reality. Ye Qing said. Not knowing the situation in the real world, everything, is really just a frog at the bottom of a well. The colorful life they think is just an insignificant talk in the thousands of worlds. Immediately, Ye Qing talked about the situation of the so-called World Master and the situation of the so-called Plain War. The purple sweet potato essence is really exciting. Not only purple potato moved carefully, but also Iron Man and Thor. Purple sweet potato essence, you are still warlike in your bones. And Thor, more warlike. As for Iron Man, that is the heartbeat of being able to see more worlds, more civilizations, and more unknown existences. Once the research soul is ignited, it will be difficult to extinguish it. The hearts of the three were moved, and even the evil dear god was also moved. Of course, out of the instinct of the god of mischief, he still hesitated, as well as fear and resistance to Ye Qing. No way, he wrote that he had experienced it before. At this time, just when purple sweet potato essence was about to agree. Okay. Suddenly, Ye Qing seemed to sense something, her mind moved, her brows frowned, her eyes flickered. I'll give you a day to think about it. Ye Qing put down these words, and on the infinite gauntlet, the blue light flashed away. Next second, the blue space door instantly wrapped Ye Qing, Dr. Clef, and others, and disappeared in an instant. When Ye Qing appeared again, he had already appeared in the void. Ahead is a cold, without any temperature, a steel planet that looks like it is made of steel. This is Cybertron. Chapter 114. Boom boom boom. At this moment, in the void, one after another gorgeous fireworks exploded, streamers overflowing, fire, gunfire, and gunpowder smoke everywhere. War. At this moment, the Cybertron planet is in a state of war. On one side, there are countless huge mecha men, while on the other side, there are countless battleships in the void. On those battleships, there are Jedi Knights wearing black robes and armor and holding lightsabers. Jedi versus Transformers. Ye Qing's he a good guy. Of course, not only Jedi Knights, Ye Qing even saw many iron-blooded soldiers and aliens. There are also men in black wearing suits holding various high-tech weapons against the sky. And liquid robots, etc. In short, that is called a multifarious. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ye Qing narrowed his eyes, looked at the fleet group, narrowed his eyes slightly. As far as the various systems are concerned, there are at least 5 world masters here. 5 world lords, and 1 world lord of the Force world. In this secret realm, don't even think about the existence of allies and friends. All are potential enemies. Especially the world master of the world with the Force. It can be said that basically, most of the world masters of the Force world are his potential enemies. Therefore, it is already obvious who to help now. Besides, even if these guys are not the world masters of some technological system, then these guys are still his enemies. Who doesn't want resource benefits anymore? As far as Ye Qing knows, this group of transformers really has a good thing. Tinder Source. A heaven-defying treasure that can transform any electronic product into mechanical life. It can be said that when you have the fire seed source, you will have a continuous army of mechanical life. At this moment, Ye Qing even thought about how to use this fire source. He still has 1 legendary battleship, 3 epic battleships, and Ruo Ren an extraordinary battleship. If all these warships are transformed into transformers, wouldn't their strength increase gradually? Of course, it's not just those spaceships and warships, there are also many things similar to electronic products in various storages. For example, satellites, lighthouses, coffee machines, time trains powered by AI and more. That's a ton of numbers. When he has the fire source, the strength of the contents can also skyrocket. In short, he will determine the source of fire today. With a thought in his mind, in the next second, a red light spread from Ye Qing's infinite gauntlet, covering the audience and the entire Cybertron star in an instant. Ye Qing is doing it. As soon as you make a shot, use the reality gem directly. The reality gem possesses a terrifying power to distort reality. If you have to set a level, the strength that Ye Qing can display is at least that of a level 6 reality twister. Although it's only level 6, it's definitely enough. In a moment of thought, the laws of the entire star field were distorted and changed at this moment. Ka 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 chi chi chi. Boom. At the moment when the reality was distorted, whether it was the World Master or the Transformers, the weapons in their hands suddenly went silent. An extinguished lightsaber is not as useful as a brick. All kinds of laser weapons and hot weapons that are stuck have not worked with a fire stick. The huge machine began to slump, and it was somewhat disobedient in its operation. Said that some people looked at the weapon in their hands in a daze, completely dumbfounded. What's the situation? At this time, among the warships, the world masters were also full of bewilderment. One or two, perhaps by accident. But this collective strike. Obviously, this is someone messing up. Who the hell? Someone asked. What a terrifying strength. Someone was still in shock. Who? Who the hell? Use the heavenly secret system to find out. On a certain battleship, a man with a gloomy expression and gloomy eyes shouted. However, as soon as his words fell, a Jedi soldier stepped forward, embarrassed and polite. My lord, the power system is completely paralyzed, and the heavenly secret system cannot be opened at all. Now, we are blind. As soon as these words came out, the man's expression became gloomy again. He gritted his teeth and shouted, restart the system. Restart the power system. I still don't believe that he can really cover the sky with one hand. This kind of ability to instantly paralyze the system equipment is simply against the sky. It is simply the nemesis of the world lord of the technological system. But the more against the sky, the higher the price. Either it doesn't last long, or there are other side effects. Anyway, whenever he restarts the system, he will definitely want that guy to look good. Of course he is not the only one who thinks this way. The rest of the world masters also had gloomy faces, giving various orders. Seeing that the Cybertron star was about to be captured, Cheng Yaojin happened to be killed halfway. Isn't this something to do? Obviously, they couldn't just give up like that. Who would like to get the duck to fly like this? Although most of them may not know what a fire source is, they are very clear that there must be treasures in this Cybertron star. That is, today, no matter who comes, they have to give it a try. However, no matter who it is, no matter how strong he is, the final result is the same. The system would not turn on, and the power system seemed to be completely damaged. No matter how advanced the technology is, such a result cannot be avoided. In this boundless starry sky, they became completely blind and deaf. Of course, in the Cybertron star at this time, those transformers are not feeling well. They are also the affected party, the weapons cannot be used normally at all, and the communication ground is completely paralyzed. Just like the old saying, travel depends on walking, and communication depends on roaring. They were a little surprised, wondering if those guys were the ones who did it. They even started to panic. If they had known that the enemy was so powerful, why would they still be stubbornly resisting? Such a gap in strength cannot be compared with numbers at all. They also became blind, only a pair of eyes can see the situation in space. But the eyes didn't look like they were there either. It's impossible to see what's going on in space. They waited anxiously, waiting for the final decisive battle to arrive. However, they waited and waited, but they didn't see those guys coming to Cybertron. They are very strange and a little confused. For a while, I couldn't figure out what the specific situation was. What the hell happened? What do those visitors from outside the domain want to do? On Cybertron, an ancient and powerful transformer named Optimus Prime frowned and muttered in a low voice. Boom, clang. Just at this moment, there was a dull sound of footsteps with metal collisions. Optimus Prime turned his head to look, and he saw a transformer who was also tall and burly, but with scarlet eyes walking over. This is Megatron. What are you doing here? Optimus Prime said in a low voice. His electronically synthesized voice seemed a little cold. Ask for flowers. This Megatron, who has always been at odds with him, is in a vaguely hostile state. And now this situation. You don't need to guess to know the other party's purpose. The moment Megatron opened his mouth, he was an old hermaphrodite. Optimus Prime, unexpectedly, you can't even handle this kind of situation. Sure enough, the position of the leader is not suitable for you at all. Optimus Prime's electronic eyes flickered, and after a long time, he said calmly, whether it is suitable or not is not up to you. In this situation, what advice do you have? Of course, lead the Transformers out. Megatron didn't pay attention to Optimus Prime's words, but his eyes were fierce and holy. That voice is like the cold ice of the Nine Netherworld, and the cold person is like falling into an ice cellar. Get out! Facing those countless warships, how do you kill them? Optimus Prime asked angrily. They are not as good as human beings, and they have no history of fighting back when they are beaten. The enemy's technology is too powerful, it is against the sky. As far as the technological level and civilization level displayed by the enemy is absolutely beyond their reach. So, Megatron is talking bullshit. However, at this moment, Megatron's eyes flashed scarlet, and he said to each other, "Don't we still have a source of fire? Turn their spaceships and battleships directly into transformers. Our victory is over." 0.00 Tinder source. Optimus Prime's pupil shrank, and he looked at Megatron with a solemn face. He narrowed his eyes, and after a long time said quietly, "Do you know what you are talking about? The source of fire, that is the Xing Yuan of the entire Transformers family. If there is the slightest mistake, they will be sinners through the ages." The importance of the fire source can be imagined. So he is very suspicious of Megatron's purpose now. This guy doesn't want to run away after getting the fire source, right? After being an enemy for so many years, he didn't think that someone like Megatron would really care about Transformers wholeheartedly. But, in other words, Megatron's proposal is not impossible. But this source of fire must not be handed over to Megatron. This kind of thing can only be handed over to a reliable person. And there are reliable people. Optimus Prime's eyes flickered, thinking. "Bumblebee," he said suddenly. "Sitsize." There was a burst of electric sound suddenly, and immediately, a tall robot with a yellow-orange body came from behind Optimus Prime. "Transformers, for the Wasp." "Boss." Bumblebee knelt down on one knee and said in a low voice. "I have a task for you." Optimus Prime said, with a thought. The next second, a halo flashed in his hand, and immediately, a cube-like object appeared in his hand. This cube looks very weird, with all kinds of intricate patterns on it. It looks extremely mysterious. This is the most noble treasure of the Transformers family, the source of fire. Tinder source. Megatron's heart moved, looking at the fire source in Optimus Prime's hand. His eyes were full of fiery color. It's not a day or two since he wanted this thing. But now, this thing is so easily given to an ordinary soldier, Bumblebee. He narrowed his eyes full of murderous intent. At this moment, he made up his mind to snatch the fire source. However, at this moment... Oh! It turns out that this is the source of the fire seed. It's really magnificent. The Yuya voice suddenly came to mind and reached everyone's ears. At this moment, no matter if it is Optimus Prime or Megatron present, those electronic eyes suddenly shrink back. Chapter 115. Who? At this moment, not only Optimus Prime, Megatron also yelled loudly at the same time. How could they have never imagined that they would be approached by someone without a sound? The point is, they didn't realize it. This is the scariest thing. Strong. This is definitely a powerhouse. It's just that this strong man, various thoughts flickered in their minds, but at this moment, they saw a golden light appear in front of their eyes. Immediately, I saw a figure that looked like a miniature and small changing heart. King Kong appeared. Of course, that guy is not a transformer, and his body does not have any mechanical equipment, nor any electronic equipment. This kind of existence, they generally call it human beings. A human being ran to the planet Cybertron? At this moment, whether it is Optimus Prime or Megatron, there are all question marks in their minds. Humans, ran to Cybertron? Really? This is definitely fake, right? There is no doubt that the person who came is Ye Qing. At this time, Ye Qing looked at the three tall transformers in front of him. Big. It's really big. At least 380 is more than 10 meters high. The visual impact is simply terrifying. Is this the Transformers? It's finally time to live. Handsome is really handsome. Domineering is really domineering. However, Ye Qing's eyes finally fell on the fire source block. Just looking at the fanciful graphics and texts on the fire seed source cube makes one feel a little dazed. It seems that there is a certain mechanism hidden in it, which is mysterious and profound. Of course, the most important thing is the huge energy contained in the fire source. The energy alone is at least at the legendary level. A legendary treasure. Good guy. Ye Qing is speechless. However, it is normal to think about it. After all, it is the source of fire seeds. Created the existence of the Transformers family. Transformers, definitely not weak. However, if the source of fire is just a legend, the upper limit of those Transformers is a bit low after all. Even if it breaks the limit, it's just a legend if it dies. This is also Ye Qing. But anyone who changes someone else will be overjoyed. You know, not everyone has legendary creatures, let alone legendary treasures. Even veteran second-tier world masters may not necessarily have legendary treasures and creatures. As for legendary weapons? Well, in comparison, weapons are often simpler and easier than creatures and treasures. Of course, Ye Qing's criticism is criticism, but in fact, the transformation of the fire source depends on the transformed body. If the contents are transformed, the situation is different. The contents can definitely increase the upper limit of transformers as a whole. Their characteristics combined with the life form of the transformers will definitely allow the contained objects to exert their maximum strength. If you can transform 173 into transformers, it will be a lore. It's just that peanuts aren't really electronic devices after all. However, now is not the time when Ye Qing looked at the two transformers in front of him, and at the source of fire in Zhu's hand. There is a smile on the corner of the mouth. Don't look at this thing is still in the hands of Optimus Prime, but in fact this thing does not belong to Optimus Prime anymore. Who are you? At this moment, Optimus Prime's voice reminded him faintly. Not only him, but even Megatron and Bumblebee looked at Ye Qing. They are also full of curiosity about this human being. The human beings in their concept can only be said to be very fragile. If you want strength without strength, you will be injured no matter if you bump into it. Not to mention surviving in the deep space of the universe. And there is no doubt that there is absolutely no oxygen on Cybertron. So the existence of Ye Qing really surprised them. Survive without oxygen? Are you sure this is human and not superhuman? Or is this some kind of alien creature? They thought so. Who am I? Regarding this, Ye Qing smiled, and said lightly, I'm just an ordinary collector passing by here. Collector. Now Optimus Prime and Megatron looked at each other. What kind of collector is this? The collector ran to the deep space runway on Cybertron? Yes, collector. A collector who specializes in collecting all kinds of precious and even mystical treasures. Ye Qing nodded affirmatively, and immediately looked at the fire source in Optimus Prime's hand, and said with a smile, it's like the fire source in your hand. Tinder source? At this moment, the hearts of Optimus Prime and Megatron sank. Megatron's eyes flickered coldly, he stared at Ye Qing, and said coldly, humans, you better think about what you are talking about. Friend. I am a visitor from afar. My Autobots have always been friends with humans. The source of the fire is my Autobots. Please don't make such jokes. Optimus Prime also said quietly. Ye Qing nodded understandingly, and then said with a smile, since that's the case, then I won't make things difficult for you, let's just say a price, and I'll buy whatever it costs. It's not about the money. Optimus Prime shook his head, my friend, give up, I won't sell the source of fire. You can also change the transaction method, we have lost our money, and our hearts are full of various high-tech technologies. Whether it is various electronic components, whether it's production parts or various production parts, we will try our best to satisfy what you want. Then what if I have to buy it? Ye Qing asked again. This is obviously a bit aggressive. Optimus Prime just frowned at this, not knowing what to say for a moment. At this time, Megatron next to him couldn't stand it anymore, and immediately said in a cold voice, idiot, haven't you seen it yet? This guy is clearly here to find trouble. Forget it, and then use the fire source to burn the outside. The space battleships are all transformed into mechanical clans. At that time, this will be our victory, and I can lead our flag to a higher glory. Immediately, without saying a word, Megatron directly punched Ye Qing and killed him. It's not that he doesn't want to use all kinds of hot weapons, but that he can't use them at all, so he can only bombard them with his fists. Boom! A violent air wave erupted. A terrifying force erupted from Megatron. That terrifying steel and steel-like fist smashed straight towards Ye Qing. Ye Qing just narrowed her eyes slightly. Then laughed. At this moment, he put on the wireless glove on his left hand, and one of the gemstones flashed with purple light. Immediately after that, he punched fiercely. Boom! The scary thing is that the aftermath shocks and the earth is turned upside down in an instant. Everything around them flew out under the shadow of this terrifying fist. The pupils of Optimus Prime and Megatron shrank. Powerful. Ye Qing is really strong. The power of this punch is simply beyond the grasp of human beings. The power is simply beyond imagination. This is simply a humanoid tank. Boom! Just as the lightning flashed in everyone's mind, that terrifying fist was already with Megatron's steel fist boy. Boom! Crack! Gazai! A burst of terrifying sound waves erupted, accompanied by countless mechanically distorted trembling sounds. Optimus Prime only felt a flash in front of his eyes, and immediately, he saw something flying past. Boom! A huge deep pit was smashed out of the steel-reinforced ground. And lying at the bottom of the pit is the unconscious Megatron. Looking at Megatron's arm, it has twisted and broken without knowing it. Fear. The power of a punch is so terrifying. A small human has erupted with a force even more terrifying than Transformers. This is simply unbelievable. A real strong man. This is a strong human being they have never seen before. Then they have also seen that there are many magical and ordinary existences among human beings. But compared to Ye Qing in front of him, those guys are like ants. Not to mention those guys, even if they themselves are in front of this man in front of them, they feel as small as ants. Megatron can be regarded as a leader, a first-level existence, but he was still killed by Ye Qing's punch. This Ye Qing definitely has the strength to crush all of them. The most important thing is the glove on Ye Qing's left hand, and the shining gems on his hand. This seems to be some kind of very powerful treasure. How? Ye Qing smiled, looking at Optimus Prime. The corner of Optimus Prime's mouth twitched, and then fell silent for 2.6 meters. Tinder source. With Ye Qing's strength, don't buy it, just ask for it. What qualifications do they have to stop it? They simply have no strength to stop Ye Qing. The strong tell you that you have no room for bargaining at all. It's useless even if you die, even if you risk your life, the treasure will eventually fall into the hands of others. This is the sorrow of the weak. Weakness is the original sin. That's what underdogs are. Finally. Call me a price. Optimus Prime gritted his teeth, and finally said helplessly. You are satisfied with this price? Ye Qing said with a smile. Immediately, he turned his head to look at the space battleships outside Cybertron. He said directly, what do you think of exchanging the fire source at the cost of these enemies' chips, these enemies? Optimus Prime turned his head to look into the deep space of the universe. Although ordinary eyesight can't see too far, but as a mechanical family, he can clearly see the battleships in the sky of the cosmos god. These are all enemies. In the end, Optimus Prime gritted his teeth and nodded, saying, okay. Chapter 116. Agreed. Optimus Prime agrees. Although it was just a simple good, it was obvious that he was unwilling. To be unwilling is to be unwilling, after all, it is the source of fire, not just any random thing. The importance of the fire source is self-evident. Not to mention the enemies outside, no matter how many enemies there are, he is not willing to exchange the source of fire. However, Ye Qing's strength is too strong. These are all impossible things. Even a strong man like Ye Qing might be able to erase Cybertron with a single thought. For the lives of all the clansmen, he had to do so. And at this time, looking at the fire source cube in his hand, Optimus Prime felt a little reluctance, but in the end, he still handed over the fire source cube. Ye Qing looked at the fire seed source, smiled slightly, and immediately, with the thought, the fire seed source fell on his subordinate. The moment he got it, pieces of information swayed in Ye Qing's mind. Here's information about Tinder sources. The source of fire can transform any electronic product into mechanical life. It can be said that this thing is definitely the treasure of the clan, and it is somewhat similar to the ancient elf tree. They are all the existence of the breeding family. Of course, this Tinder source is a little bit more rehabilitated. It takes time for the ancient elf tree to breed elves, but this source of fire can transform into a transformer in an instant. A legendary treasure. Breed a family of treasures. Good stuff, this is really good stuff. The energy is abundant. If this source of fire is completely transformed into a life, it might become the next legend. Of course, no one would do such a thing, and he couldn't do it. Friend 27, where's your promise? Just then, Optimus Prime's voice rang out. He had a low voice, and his eyes were fixed on Ye Qing, for fear that Ye Qing would run away with the fire source, and by that time, the gain would outweigh the loss. Don't worry. Ye Qing just smiled, and immediately snapped her fingers with her left hand. Buzz. At this moment, terrifying energy fluctuations spread, and a tyrannical, law-like force spread from Ye Qing's body to the entire Cybertron star, and even the main star field. Then, there's no after that. Hey! Optimus Prime was taken aback, looking at Ye Qing in confusion. It's over, he asked tentatively. It's over. Ye Qing nodded. Optimus Prime? Why do you go to the grave to burn newspapers and follow reggae? You just snap your fingers and it's all over? Are you kidding me? Oh, no, even if you're joking, it's not so outrageous, is it? With a snap of the fingers, can an enemy that they all feel pressured to be destroyed? Plus he felt like he was being teased. The human being in front of him is here to play him. However, at this moment... Boom boom boom. Bang clang. There was a burst of metal collision sound, and the sound of footsteps came. As soon as I saw it, an equally huge robot ran over, flustered and out of place. What are you panicking about? Optimus Prime's expression darkened, and he scolded. Boss, the communication has been restored, and the various systems are operating normally in an instant. The robot said, with some information. Optimus Prime was a little surprised, then, he glanced at Ye Qing, and understood that it was definitely Ye Qing who did it. But... the communication will be restored as soon as the communication is restored. What's the fuss? Don't lose face in front of the guests. Optimus Prime still said that, his tone not salty or bland, maintaining the poise that a leader should have. However, the robot hurriedly said again, but, the system detector detected this picture. As he said that, the robot projected pictures from its eyes. In the picture, is the boundless deep space. It is boundless, dark, and deep, occasionally dotted with stars, which looks dreamy and blurred. The most important thing is that in the void, there are spaceships lying across. The huge spaceship world is full of impact, and there are countless creatures around the spaceship. They may wear special spacesuits and can move flexibly. Or it is exposed in the space itself, with a hideous face. This is exactly the situation outside Cybertron, and these guys are all enemies who attacked Cybertron before. What's wrong? Optimus Prime frowned, looking at the robot in confusion. He had seen this scene as early as when those guys declared war. Looking at it now, it is just adding some boring blackness out of thin air. However, just when he was thinking this way, he saw that in the picture, whether it was the Jedi Knight holding a lightsaber, or the terrifying alien and predator, or the liquid robot and the man in black. In short, at this moment, in the void, there seems to be some laws gathering, and it seems that some terrifying obliterating power suddenly appears. See you soon. Forward. These guys also felt a little discomfort one by one, and a feeling of weakness lingered in their hearts, as if they would die in the next second. Of course, that's not how it feels. It's the truth. They looked at their hands, starting from the fingers, turning into particles little by little, turning into nothingness and dissipating, as if they had never appeared before. In an instant, the endless enemies, hideous and terrifying monsters, appeared here for a moment, everything turned into dust and dissipated into the universe. Yes, all. That is, all the enemies, all turned into dust and dissipated in the universe. Optimus Prime was stunned. He looked at everything in the picture with a dazed expression on his face. This is so, how did you do that? You, is that you? Optimus Prime suddenly turned his head and looked at Ye Qing. Ye Qing nodded with a smile, indicating that she did it herself. For a moment, Optimus Prime was even more shocked. Is it really this human being? How on earth did you do it? Optimus Prime subconsciously asked. Ye Qing smiled and didn't speak. Obviously, without him saying it, Optimus Prime had already thought of it. Because, before that, Ye Qing moved a bit. Yes, that snap of the fingers. Ye Qing really snapped his fingers to kill so many enemies? Surprised. Optimus Prime was really shocked. You. For a moment, he stuttered and couldn't speak, so shocked, because of the accident. Good guy, did you really kill so many guys with just a snap of your fingers? What kind of monster is Ye Qing? Just a snap of the fingers. Just a snap of the fingers. Since Ye Qing can kill those guys with a snap of his fingers, in other words, he can kill them with a snap of his fingers? Powerful. Until now, Optimus Prime really felt the strength of Ye Qing. Absolutely invincible existence. Where did this strong man come from? Why hadn't he heard of it before? Look at that projection again. As those enemies turned into dust and disappeared, the deep space of the universe also fell silent at this moment. Communications resumed. The deep space of the universe is still terrifyingly silent. Even the scene was eerily silent for a moment. The enemy disappeared, leaving only one unmanned warship. Of course, these warships were naturally kept by Ye Qing on purpose. These things belong to the category of weapons and treasures, and these warships are all his spoils of war. Is that why you gave him the fire source? Suddenly, at this moment, a gloomy voice suddenly sounded. Optimus Prime suddenly turned his head. But I saw, in the bottom of the metal pit, Megatron slowly climbed up, looked at him with a gloomy face, and looked at the source of fire in Ye Qing's hand. Would you rather trust a human being than me? Megatron got up, and walked towards this side with cold eyes. He stared at Optimus Prime, his eyes were terribly cold. Optimus Prime, I am so disappointed in you. Ka ka ka. At this moment, as Megatron was walking, there were still bursts of electric sparks on his mutilated shoulders. Even his voice was a little hoarse and disturbing. Apparently, Ye Qing's punch earlier had a great impact on him. As a result, some electrical appliances were short-circuited, and the electronic components were even damaged, which made him unconscious for a long time. He didn't wake up until before. But as soon as he woke up, he saw Ye holding the fire source. Is this worth it? He became angry immediately, and his eyes turned red in an instant. What he couldn't ask for, did this person in front of him get it so easily? He was naturally angry and naturally upset. Ye Qing is indeed very strong. However, strong returns to strong, and there is no way to beat him to death. Moreover, he hasn't exploded his real strength yet. If he really tries his best, if he really fights, he may not be afraid of Ye Qing. And at the same time, whoosh, whoosh. With Megatron's thought, immediately, in the distance, flames pierced the sky, and in an instant, they appeared beside Megatron. Ka ka ka, and his crippled broken arm fell abruptly, and the streamers turned into pieces of mechanical and electronic parts, and fell on Megatron's shoulder in an instant, and then directly turned into a brand new arm. And this brand new arm looks even darker and deeper, and the material is even more special, black and reflective. Just looking at it, it feels extremely tough. At the same time, there are many cold weapons on this arm. On the cold weapon, the cold light flickered, more penetrating. Today, he really wants to compete with Ye Qing to determine the outcome. Optimus Prime looked at Megatron, his eyes moved, and he wanted to say something. However, Megatron didn't even look at it, he just stared at Ye Qing, and said with a sneer, "Human, I was careless before, and didn't flash. Now, let's compare again." Crash! In the next second, a cold iron whip was drawn from his wrist. The iron whip flickered coldly. The most important thing is Sitsizi. On the iron whip, there was another electric current. The electric arc surrounded and crackled, and there was a burst of burnt smell in the air. Snapped. One whip. Crack. Two whips. Papa papa. Three whips. Crack clap clap. Four whips. Crack, clap, clap. 5 whips. 5 lightning whips. Amazing power. Megatron shook the lightning whip in his hand, his eyes were sharp, he looked at Ye Qing, and said in a low voice, "Come on." Chapter 117. Ye Qing looked at Megatron a little speechlessly. Number 7 *. 5 flashes of lightning? This is so. Ye Qing didn't want to say anything anymore. Immediately, he had a thought, and then a beam of light of various colors flickered, and in an instant, a terrifying force descended, and immediately as soon as I saw it, the power was washed away and spread towards Megatron. Hey! Megatron was taken aback, and looked at Ye Qing in astonishment. He still wanted to say something, but he suddenly felt that his power began to flow away at this moment, as if the battery had run out. His body began to become weak, and began to twist mechanically. Forward. Megatron's eyes flickered, and his thoughts were blocked, intermittent and somewhat in a trance. Then, he saw, starting from his fingers, little by little turned into ashes. What kind of power is this? Megatron looked at his body that was beginning to turn into ashes in shock, he was completely dumbfounded. Is this guy in front of him so powerful? Just a thought, just for a moment, that's it. He's totally numb. He looked at himself and Ye Qing with a dazed face. He opened his mouth, and for a moment, he didn't know what to say. Immediately, his thoughts were completely plunged into darkness. Died. Yes, Wei Tian died just like that. At this moment, the atmosphere in the field became even more eerie and silent. Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, and even the robot that appeared afterward all looked at Ye Qing in a daze. Is that the end? That Megatron's lightning 5 consecutive whips has not yet been displayed, so it's over? Sneak attack? This young man doesn't speak martial arts. Hey! After a long time, everyone let out a long breath, and all of them looked at Ye Qing with some complicated expressions. Some are afraid, and some are afraid. They were really afraid that Ye Qing would be wiped out even with them. That's the scariest thing. Of course, they are also afraid that Ye Qing will implicate them because of Megatron, but... Fortunately, Ye Qing didn't seem to pursue this matter, but with a thought, the fire source was directly put away. Then, looking at Optimus Prime, he said calmly, "The transaction is completed, I should leave too." Said, without waiting for Optimus Prime to stay, immediately, Ye Qing took a step forward. The next second, surrounded by blue light, the blue space door appeared, and disappeared immediately. Gone. Ye Qing also left. On the Cybertron star, it became more and more empty and silent. Very weird. They stared at the direction where Ye Qing disappeared, dazed. Very powerful existence. From now on, this world. Oh no, this universe, I am afraid it will be turned upside down? They think so. Of course, Ye Qing doesn't care how they feel. And at this time, in the void, on the groups of battleships. Looking at the dozen or so unmanned space battleships, Ye Qing had a thought, and in the next second, all of these space battleships were put away by Ye Qing. Of course, at the moment when these space battleships are charged. In the void, 5 figures slowly appeared. These people look like human beings. To be precise, it is indeed human. And these people are naturally world masters like Ye Qing. The state of these people doesn't look very good. It seems that some kind of strange power is disappearing from them, but there is another kind of power fighting against them. Fortunately, in the end, it belongs to Rootless Ping, and after a while, it's over. However, they still consumed a lot of power in the world against the power of annihilation. Finally, the power of annihilation disappeared. The 5 world masters finally had time to look around. Just looking at it, they were stunned. The empty deep space of the universe, the empty depths of the void. Here, empty familiar warships are gone, and familiar subordinates are also available. They are all alone, standing in this deep space, their 10 eyes are dazed. Damn, so many men? What about your own battleship? Could it be that his subordinates defected to the enemy and rebelled? Don't let them be the main gods anymore? They can't figure out the situation. But... Suddenly they saw Ye Qing, who was also standing in the deep space of the universe. The mere existence of Ye Qing gave them a sense of disobedience, as if, this Ye Qing did not belong to this world at all. It's more like coming from another dimension, out of tune with this world. In other words, this person, like them, is the lord of the world? The other 4 are all familiar faces, only Ye Qing is a new face. Who are you? What happened? At this moment, a person stepped forward and looked at Ye Qing with a frown. There is a faint fluctuation of the power of the world on his body, which is obviously not weak compared to others. This guy is faintly a leader. And this person is naturally the world king of the Force world. Its strength is strong. Well, at least it is better than Zhang Wenchuan to perceive the fluctuation of the power of the world. Oh, how simple it is, not just protein spots. It should be said that it is much stronger against this guy. 3 Zhang Wenchuan are not enough to look at in front of this guy. Of course, in front of Ye Qing at this moment, no matter how strong the world lord is, it is useless, and the final result is just to be killed in seconds. And for the guy's query, Ye Qing just smiled, and didn't even have any explanation, but, in the next second, a wave of energy light attacked the 5 world masters. That guy's face changed. He never thought that Ye Qing would be so unreasonable. Do it as soon as it comes up? No symptoms? Immediately, their expressions sank, and apart from anything else, various defensive weapons appeared in their hands. Some are directly golden light. Some of them appear as energy shields, or even ordinary shields. Buzz! As the energy beam fell in front of them, the shields in their hands and the surrounding shields also lit up. However, that shield didn't last long. Click! A series of crisp cracking sounds suddenly sounded. As you can see, cracks began to spread on the shield, whether it's a shield of golden light all over, or an energy shield, or a shield Under that light, I couldn't last long at all, and in the end. Boom! The shield instantly shattered, and the terrifying impact crushed hundreds of people. The faces of the 5 people changed wildly, only feeling a suffocating pressure coming. The 4 people who were weaker in strength lost consciousness in an instant, and fell into the darkness completely. Only the most powerful world master of the Force world is still holding on with his teeth gritted. He looked at Ye Qing in amazement, and then, as if he understood something, he was full of shock and anger. Is it you? You are responsible for all this. He got it. Before that terrifying force struck, they didn't know who it was. Even the one who blocked the communication and paralyzed the system, they didn't know who it was. Until now, he understands. It turned out that everything was done by this guy in front of him. The praying mantis catches the cicada, the oriole follows. The key is... Who the hell is this guy? So strong. There must be legends about this strength, right? Such a young, powerful existence, hadn't heard of it before? Logically speaking, they should be very clear about such an existence, even if they haven't seen it, they have heard of it. But now? Complete stranger? Never before seen existence? Friend, there is something to discuss, why bother to fight and kill as soon as you come up? He hurriedly opened his mouth, fearing that there would be nothing left after he finished speaking. Look at others. As soon as I saw it, the eyes of the rest of them were already dull and dull. Although he is still alive, it is obvious that this state is no different from being dead. When the time comes, just let this guy in front of you. Negotiable. Ye Qing smiled and didn't speak, but the light of the gemstone in his hand became brighter and brighter. Obviously, he never thought of discussing anything with this guy. Just kill it, it's all over, discuss it. Discuss what a fart. Seeing Ye Qing's reckless appearance, the guy's heart moved, and he hurriedly said, Brother, I have a message. Everyone comes to this secret realm to find opportunities, and I happen to know the biggest secret of this secret realm. As soon as these words came out, Ye Qing held his hand and paused slightly. Even the rays of light attacking him stopped. Seeing this, the guy's eyes were full of information, and he immediately said, Brother, as long as you don't kill me, I can tell you anything. What do you think? Ye Qing said lightly, whether to kill you or not depends on whether the value you provide is enough for your life money. Enough, sure. The guy smiled obsequiously, and immediately began his story. It is said that this secret realm world was once just a world, even a small world of a certain world lord, but later, the world lord fell, and this world became a void world without an owner. According to normal circumstances, this world will either be purified by other world masters in the future, or it will be swallowed by its cosmic storm. In short, there is absolutely no good end. But later, this world wandered in the void and encountered other worlds. By coincidence, the collision between the world and the world began, but after the collision, it was not a battle, but a fusion. Wing Wang Zhao, the world merges, the origin is strengthened, and it gradually develops into the form of the universe. The world was destroyed and reborn, and the secret realm was formed like this. But in this secret world, the dimension is no longer in the original dimension, similar to the concept of parallel universes. This is the secret of the secret realm itself. The guy said carefully, observing Ye Qing's expression while speaking. These things work, but not for much. It can only be said that this guy is stalling for time. Ye Qing naturally saw through this guy's little thoughts at a glance. He looked at that guy coldly, the gems on the infinity gauntlet lit up one by one. Oh! By the way, as for the secret of this 3-star secret realm, he hurriedly said, actually, in this 3-star secret realm, there is the most heaven-defying treasure. This treasure is definitely at the level of legend, and even higher than legend. It is said that this treasure is the original treasure created by the ancestor of a certain god's domain. It is the first in all worlds and the only existence in the heavens. As long as you get it, you can even control a part of the origin of this secret world, and have the freedom to enter and leave the secret qualifications of the world. At this moment, the guy was talking endlessly. However, Ye Qing's eyes are becoming more and more dangerous. Rory babbled a lot, but didn't get to the point. What do you want to do? Is it really fair to procrastinate for time? Cough cough. The guy coughed twice, and hurriedly said, then what? This baby is the legendary Death Star. And where the Death Star is? Chapter 118. Death Star. At this moment, Ye Qing's pupil shrank. Finally getting to the point. He said, he used the key of the Death Star to enter this secret realm. How could there be no Death Star in this secret realm? However, from the beginning to now, the Death Star has never been seen, just like this secret world has nothing to do with the Death Star. Until now. The secret of the Death Star. Know where the Death Star is? Tell me. Ye Qing said lightly, her tone was silent, neither happy nor sad. Hearing this, the guy looked delighted. Apparently, Ye Qing said so his life was saved, right? He thought so, but he was not in a hurry, and said with a flattering smile, "Boss, the Death Star, in fact, the Cybertron star in front of you is the Death Star." Hey! Ye Qing turned his head, and looked at the Cybertron star with some surprise. "Hey guys, is this the Death Star? Are you FG kidding me?" Ye Qing looked at that guy, narrowing his eyes slightly. He suspected that this guy was teasing him. It is undeniable that this Cybertron star is indeed a steel planet, but this has nothing to do with the Death Star, right? "Boss, I never lied to you, I have inside information, this Cybertron star is the Death Star." That 663 guy was extremely sure. Oh! Ye Qing looked the guy in front of him up and down, and it seemed that he did not appear to be lying. However, the fact that the Death Star is the Cybertron star was somewhat beyond his expectations. And then, Ye Qing asked again. Although the guy in front of him didn't appear to be lying, he always felt that this guy seemed to have something to say. This guy must be hiding something from himself. Therefore, Ye Qing looked at that guy intently, waiting for the guy's final reply. The guy smiled obsequiously, and hurriedly said, "Sure enough, I can't hide from the boss's sharp eyes. Indeed, this Cybertron is the Death Star, but this is only one of them." One. Ye Qing narrowed his eyes. This one is a bit interesting and worth pondering. In other words, this Death Star still has many existences in this world? Then, these dead stars, merged into one big dead star? Is this still a synthetic game? Something? Then, where are the other Death Star fragments? How many Death Star fragments are there in total? Ye Qing asked again. This. However, when this topic was brought up, that guy hesitated, faltered, and didn't know what to say for a while. If you tell them all, he will be useless by then. But if you don't say it, if Ye Qing gets angry and kills him directly, it will be even more embarrassing. So, at this moment, he was caught in a dilemma. F#82 number. Of course, there are things he doesn't know. For example, he doesn't know exactly how many pieces of the Death Star there are. However, he did know where some other Death Star fragments were. He frowned. "Don't tell me," Ye Qing said lightly. "Tell me." He smiled wryly, and immediately said cautiously, "Well, boss, in fact, what I know is very limited, you see." "It's okay, just say it," Ye Qing said. "Yes, yes, yes," he said, and immediately, he talked about 3 planets one after another. One is this world, the moon on the blue star, which is a fragment of the Death Star, and the other is a huge monster planet. All of them are gigantic monsters. Those monsters were all the prisoners who were imprisoned on the Death Star. In the end, the fragments of the Death Star turned into planets, and those prisoners also became the ancestors of those huge monsters. Today, this planet has opened up a wormhole because of its connection with the moon. However, this wormhole is slightly shifted and landed in the ocean of Blue Star, and the last planet he knew, after countless years of evolution, has now become a living planet. It is said that the living planet is also called Ego. It seems that in a certain star field, a little name has been created, and it seems that it is still called a godlike existence. As for the others, he is not very clear. Including the current Cybertron star, there are 4 pieces of the Death Star. Except for a satellite and a planet with an unknown, Chvi, size, the remaining 2 are extremely huge existences. One is Cybertron star, a huge metallic ball, at least 800 times larger than Blue Star, same as Uranus. One is Ego, a living planet, not necessarily as big as Cybertron, but definitely bigger than Blue Star. It is these 2 star kings together, who surpassed the original Death Star by an unknown number of times. In the end, these 2 huge planets turned out to be just fragments. Wait until all the fragments are assembled, and the volume of this Death Star. Ye Qing couldn't imagine it anymore. It's so huge that he's in a trance. And that monster planet, if he guessed correctly, this planet is at least 100 times the size of Blue Star. Otherwise, it would be impossible to breed such a huge monster. Therefore, this Death Star is bigger than he imagined, and it is even more against the sky. Isn't this already beyond the legendary level? No way, is this a quasi-mythical level? Even a mythical level? No, impossible. If that was the case, the myth would have died long ago. It's not that until now, very few world masters have mythical creatures. Forget it, don't care, don't think so much. With a thought, Ye Qing looked at the guy who was still looking at him flatteringly, and immediately snapped his fingers. Crack! The crisp snapping sound spread through the void, and in an instant, the 6 infinity gems on the infinity gauntlet emitted bright light. The light is clear and dazzling. In the next second, the light directly devoured that guy. A sense of powerlessness came into his heart. The guy stared wide-eyed, looking at Ye Qing in disbelief. Didn't you say, don't kill me? Although he had already predicted in his heart that he would definitely not be able to escape today. However, he never expected that this guy would be so ignorant of martial arts. Do it without saying a word? This is so. He was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. Anyway, he is also a strong man, but in the end, he didn't get credit at all. However, Ye Qing just chuckled and said lightly, when did I say that I won't kill you? That guy was taken aback, a little stunned, and after careful reflection, he suddenly realized that, it seems, Ye Qing really never said anything about not killing him from the beginning to the end. He almost spat out a mouthful of old blood. Got tricked. That's how he got played. He gritted his teeth, but everything was helpless. Ye Qing's strength is too strong, he has no ability to resist at all. In the end, that consciousness can only fall into the infinite king of darkness. It's finally done. Ye Qing let out a long breath, then, with a thought, he turned to look at the other 4 world masters. These guys, consciousness has long been plunged into darkness. Of course, it was imprisoned by him. With a thought in his mind, pieces of information came into his mind immediately. He really wants to know, do these guys know the information about the Death Star? What a discovery! In addition to the 4 planets he knew before. Someone knows another planet, also a fragment of the Death Star. And this planet, in this universe, is called Chlorine Star. Chapter 119. Krypton. Ye Qing stared. Good guy, it won't be the Kryptonian I thought of, right? But obviously, this guy knows very little. However, no matter what, Ye Qing still feels. This world is so weird and messy. Now that the whereabouts of the Death Star fragments are known, there is no need for the 4 guys in front of them to stay. But, in other words, how does the origin of this world condense? He frowned. Yes, he is thinking about the origin of the world right now. He still has a containment object he hasn't created yet. It's the Red Sea object. The level of the Red Sea object is definitely better than any cheats. However, how should he get out the source of the World Master? Although he is also the World Lord, but the source of this thing is mysterious, and he is completely confused. Who knows how to get that thing? It is impossible to refine people into pills or treasures, right? Just when Ye Qing thought so, he saw the infinity gauntlet in his hand. Speaking of infinity gauntlets, 6 gemstones gathered together can satisfy almost anyone and any wish. He only needs a thought, whether it's obliteration, creation, or any other situation, that's fine. That is to say, the origin of the World Lord. Ye Qing looked at one of the World Lords intently, a thought flashed in his mind, and immediately, rays of light fell directly on the World Lord, and immediately, a terrifying force began to appear. Visible to the naked eye, many boxes appeared on the World Lord. The light began to spread from the body, as if the most important thing had been stripped away. Even though his consciousness was plunged into endless darkness, the instinctive reaction of his body was still extremely painful. However, Ye Qing didn't care. He saw the rays of light, clusters of energy began to fuse, and finally, in front of the World Lord, a crystal clear bead was fused. The bead is 2 times smaller than a marble, it is crystal clear, and there are many runes inside, even close. And those energies are the power of the world that Ye Qing is extremely familiar with. Look at that World Lord. No, it is no longer possible to call him the Lord of the world. Because, at this moment, neither his body constitution nor the energy in his body disappeared, and he became an ordinary person. Yes, just a normal person. Even without the passive protection of the power of the world, in the blink of an eye, he was frozen into an ice sculpture by the cosmic vacuum, and turned into space junk floating in the void. Buzz! The source of the World Master fell into the hands of Ye Qing. The crystal clear beads exude a strange power, very powerful. Even, Ye Qing felt that this bead seemed to be of great use to him. This is the purest world power, which can enhance his own world power and restore his world power. Even, this thing can supplement the origin of the small world. It can be said that this is simply the existence of panacea. This is the origin of the World Master. Ye Qing looked at it with some surprise, and then looked at the remaining 4 World Masters. He did the same thing again, and in the blink of an eye, there were 4 more World Master origin beads in front of him. The origin beads are big or small, and it seems to be related to the strength of the World Lord himself. The World Master of the Force World, the original bead is already the size of a glass marble, and it contains abundant world power. Ye Qing also discovered that this original orb seems to be able to devour each other, and then become stronger. Ye Qing also saw it for the first time, so he let them devour each other, and finally, they merged into a big star glass ball like marbles. Just such a bead. This is the origin of the Lord of the World. It is also the source of the 4 World Masters. With a thought, Ye Qing began to communicate with the system, asking whether the main source of this world is qualified. After getting the system's convincing, the corners of Ye Qing's mouth twitched. After the system verification, this thing is indeed the main source of the world that created the Red Sea object. However, the quality of the original bead of the World Lord is too poor. At least 1 epic World Master origin bead is required. And the one in Ye Qing's hand is the fusion of 5 World Masters original beads, from ordinary to intermediate. It's too early to get away from the epic. I was careless, this time. Am I really going to be a big villain? Ye Qing was a little speechless. How many World Masters do you have to kill to collect the epic World Master origin beads? It's okay to do things in the secret realm, but if you go out and do things again, it won't be very wonderful. I don't know how many World Masters will come to the secret world this time. Ye Qing sighed softly. Anyway, he felt suspended. Forget it, let's go find the Death Star fragments first. Ye Qing turned his head to look at the Cybertron star, thinking, asking for flowers. Buzz! On the Infinity Gauntlet, the red gem of reality flashed red light. In the next second, the definition of the Cybertron star was directly changed, and the reality was distorted. In the next second, the Cybertron star directly became a star. A planet the size of a glass bead. The planet was directly controlled by him and thrown into the blue space. Immediately. Ye Qing's body was flickered with blue light, and he stepped out with 1 step, and then disappeared in an instant. When Ye Qing reappeared, he was already standing on Blue Star's void land. The land of nothingness is still deep and dark. Iron Man and others have already left, and this empty land has become empty and deep again, very lonely. Ye Qing didn't care, she took the next step, and when she reappeared, she was already standing on the huge ocean. Near the coast, I don't know which country it is. Now, fortifications have been built on the seashore. The tall city walls are specially used to resist the monsters invading from the bottom of the sea. This is the place with the most people, and also the place with the most power users. Those monsters are often beyond the reach of ordinary people. Even if it is an aircraft, artillery, and tank, if you want to kill a huge monster, you need at least continuous bombing at night. On the contrary, those superpowers, mutants, etc., can kill these huge monsters better. So, here, as long as you have some superpowers, no matter whether you are a mutant or a superpower, you can enjoy extremely high treatment. However, these years, the strength of the monsters has become stronger and stronger, and the superpowers have gradually become too much to bear. The human side has already started to research the huge steel armor to fight against the monsters. This is still inspired by the former Cybertronian and Iron Man. Ye Qing didn't care about this either. With a thought, he walked on the waves. With the explosion of the Infinity Gauntlet's power, the sea water began to split, and with 1 step, it was the interior of the sea. He can even clearly see the wormhole opened on the bottom of the sea. The pitch-black and deep wormhole burst out with a wave of violent power. It seems that there are monsters coming out of the wormhole at any time. Ye Qing stood in front of the wormhole, carefully looking at the wormhole. Dangerous? There's nothing dangerous about it either. There is nothing to hesitate. Ye Qing stepped out in 1 step, and directly stepped into the wormhole minister. He really wants to see what kind of pill this monster planet is. Chapter 120. At this moment, Ye Qing stepped forward, and disappeared into the wormhole in an instant. Surrounded by space power, Ye Qing only felt that her body was torn apart, a tearing force came, Ye Qing only felt a blur in front of her eyes, and immediately, the whole person stood in another world. Around, thick fog filled the air, and visibility was very low. Faintly visible, there are huge trees towering into the sky. Everything here seems to be huge, not only the trees, but even the grass on the ground is also huge. Compared with the blue star, everything in the entire monster world is very huge. At this moment, behind Ye Qing, something seemed to flash by, and there was some movement. Ye Qing suddenly turned her head. However, behind him, there was nothing. Shua. At the same time, something flashed past in front of him. Ye Qing turned her head again, however, there was still nothing. Soon. 230 has something, and it's staring at me. Pretending to be a ghost. Ye Qing sneered, and immediately on Ye Qing's left hand, a red light suddenly flashed, and immediately. Boom! All the dense fog around him disappeared in an instant, and the vision finally recovered clearly. It wasn't until this moment that Ye Qing saw that above the huge tree, there was a huge monster that looked like a monkey creature squatting on the tree. This monkey monster is also very strange, with a strangely long tail, 2 legs, but 4 hands. The big eyes were smashing, looking at the thick fog that disappeared around them with some surprise. For a while, they still felt a little uncomfortable. However, after getting used to it a little, it looked at Ye Qing again, subconsciously licked its lips, and its eyes were full of bloodlust. On this planet, body shape is everything. You are big, so you can naturally dominate everything. You are small in size, so you are naturally destined to be devoured. In Ye Qing's eyes, the monkey was indeed huge, obviously dry and thin, but in fact, its size was at least 2 circles larger than that huge silver-backed orangutan. With a body shape of 3 meters, it is really huge among primates. But in fact, this monkey is really the bottom of the food chain on this planet. Now, it finally sees Ye Qing, an ant that is smaller than it. The weak, the ants. Naturally, it will be stared at by it. Whoosh! After adapting to the influence of the fog, it moved and attacked directly. It didn't even try to test Ye Qing's strength. It launched an attack directly, intending to forcefully kill Ye Qing. In its view, no matter whether Ye Qing is hiding any strength or not, under the absolute crush of body shape, even if Ye Qing has hidden strength, he is not its opponent. This is the law of Monster Planet. However, it is doomed to find the wrong enemy. Ye Qing squinted at this guy, sneered, and immediately. In his hand, the power gems gathered together, and in an instant, red light fell on the monkey. Then, the monkey was stopped in midair so abruptly. The monkey looked at the red light all over him in surprise. Pfft! In the next second, his body twisted directly, and a pain came, his body was twisted and torn, and in an instant, blood rained in the forest. Ye Qing shook his head, but he didn't care about it. Immediately, his body flashed and appeared directly in the void. Immediately, he turned his head, looked behind him, and looked at the huge planet. This planet is really big, at least at the level of Neptune. It looks 3 or 5 circles older than Blue Star. It's really planet of the monsters. It is indeed huge. Perhaps it is precisely because of such a huge planet that such a big monster can be bred. There are many monsters. Ye Qing stood in the void, glanced around, and probably understood how many monsters there are in this monster planet. Among them, the biggest monster. Roar! A roar resounded through the sky. It can be seen that the giant beast is fighting with another monster. The height of the giant beast is terrifying. According to preliminary estimates, it is at least 100 meters high. The long tail flicked, at least 100 or 200 meters. Behind this monster, there are many cuticle-like dorsal fins. Accompanied by the roar, the back flashed with a blue luster. It looks like a dinosaur, but it is even more ferocious and domineering than a dinosaur. Seeing this somewhat familiar image, Ye Qing was slightly taken aback. This is Godzilla? Good guy. Are there such monsters living on this monster planet? Ye Qing was amazed, calling him a good guy. Look at the monster facing him. This monster is also very strange, with 3 heads, it looks like a giant dragon in Western legends, its whole body is covered with golden scales and it has a bunch of electric wings. A 3-headed dragon. This is Ghidorah? Ye Qing was taken aback for a moment, and then immediately clicked his tongue in amazement. What a Godzilla warrior! There is no doubt that whether it is Godzilla or Ghidorah, they are extremely powerful existences, and they are also epic creatures with great potential. Yes. Whether it's Godzilla or Ghidorah, their strengths are at the epic level. Just such a planet gave birth to 2 epic level. Well, it seems more than that. It seems that there is also a huge King Kong, which also has an epic atmosphere. 3 epic creatures. King Kong, Godzilla, Ghidorah, these 3 epic creatures could make a movie together. Ye Qing looked strange. Of course, it doesn't matter what movie or not. What matters is the 3 monsters themselves. There is no doubt that in terms of potential, Godzilla must be the existence with the highest potential. Then there is King Kong, and finally there is Ghidorah. Don't look at Ghidorah spitting out the gravitational light of the lightning suit, which looks very powerful, and the body is in the shape of a dragon, which is very extraordinary. But this Ghidorah, the upper limit is just like that. And Godzilla and King Kong should have a higher upper limit, and they can evolve and become stronger. However, these are not important anymore. Ye Qing had a thought, and immediately said, he made a move directly, 01250123 filo 2100622050 OM. At this moment, one after another red lights flashed, surrounded by energy beams, and in the next second, that terrifying light directly enveloped the entire monster planet. Boom! At this moment, the monster planet began to vibrate, and the countless huge monsters were a little dazed, looking around in a daze, a little at a loss. They don't know exactly what happened. I can't figure out what happened. Except for some shocks in the world, the rest seemed to have nothing happened. After a long time, the vibration stopped, as if nothing happened. But then, they felt that the sky was dark. That huge, pitch-black pillar that can't see the edge of 0.5 shrouds the planet, like a landslide and a crack in the earth, terrifying and amazing. All the behemoths panicked. They really don't know how to describe what happened before them. At this time, the foundation of the void. Ye Qing looked at the monster planet the size of a glass bead in his hand, smiled, and threw it into the blue space again. The second Death Star fragment, here you go. Then, what is left is the moon and the hidden star. The words of the moon. The one who came here in a hurry fell directly from the wormhole to the monster planet. If he wants to go back, it's easy to get there, the space gem allows him to reach any place in the universe in an instant. B. With a thought, Ye Qing suddenly looked to the west. There seems to be a trace of familiar fluctuations. At this moment, pieces of information came into Ye Qing's mind. Ye Qing seemed to understand something, narrowing her eyes slightly. This is. That direction, seems to be. Krypton. Chapter 121. This is really. Ye Qing looked at the west and smiled slightly. Krypton. It's really hard to find a place to go through iron shoes, and it takes no effort to get it. With a thought in Ye Qing's mind, immediately, information related to Krypton appeared in front of his eyes. On Krypton, there is a group of humanoid beings called Kryptonians. In terms of appearance and life, there is no difference between people and nature. But Krypton is much larger than Blue Star, and they even have a more developed civilization and more advanced technology. But Krypton, the star around it, is not yellow like a blue star, but red like a twilight year. It can be said that every Kryptonian is a Superman, flying, infinite strength, steel and iron, heat rays, cold breathing. Of course, there must be a premise for this. The premise is that these Kryptonians have arrived at the blue star and basked in the yellow sun for enough time to inspire these superpowers. And on Krypton, under the shining of the red sun, Kryptonians are nothing more than life forms with a highly developed civilization. Due to the highly developed technology, Kryptonians have long abandoned normal reproduction, and then changed to artificial humans. And these artificial people, when they were created, had already determined their future identities. You are a soldier, you are a soldier. You are a cook and you are a cook. At the moment of gene injection, the future has already been set. This kind of civilization, if you say it is strong, it is powerful, if you say it is not strong, it is just average. As for future caps, maybe there is even more heaven-defying technology born. However, if this locks up a person's future achievements, it also locks up the future achievements of the entire civilization. Unless they create a person who breaks the shackles and creates an unprecedented existence, otherwise, this Kryptonian civilization sooner or later will be annihilated in the long history of the universe. Regarding this, Ye Qing just shook his head and didn't think much about it. Now, it is no longer a problem of Kryptonian civilization, but a problem of this Kryptonian. This Krypton is exactly what he needs to find a fragment of the Death Star. Similarly, Ye Qing still lightly snapped his fingers, and the planet Krypton shrank accordingly. No matter how the scientists in that Kryptonian probe, there is no way to detect why. Then, they felt that the whole planet was plunged into darkness. They left the yellow sun completely, were caught by a huge circular pillar, and then were thrown into the empty space. All Kryptonians are confused. Ye Qing doesn't care about this. He can only say that this Kryptonian, he received without any waves, without any twists and turns. Then, there's the moon. With a thought in Ye Qing's mind, the next second, the power of the space gem was activated. He stepped out and disappeared. The moon is a satellite of the blue star, revolving around the blue star. Tidal locking. If the blue star has no moon, then the tide will start to stagnate, and the sea water in the ocean will flow everywhere, eventually causing a spontaneous tsunami on the blue star. The tsunami will sweep the city, and eventually, only some mountains will remain, and the rest of the coastal cities will be submerged. This is the consequence of blue star losing the moon. But, as far as Ye Qing is concerned, he doesn't care about these things. He wants the moon. With a thought in Ye Qing's mind, in the next second, the moon technology shrank, and in an instant, it became a glass marble. The reduction of the standard is naturally the glass marble. And at the same time, at the moment when the moon disappeared, on the blue star, in the areas of the world where the tide was supposed to rise and fall, the tide suddenly calmed down. The water flow began to flow irregularly, began to gather in all directions, and began to gather in low-lying areas. Most people don't know what's going on. However, at this moment, the space stations of various countries, the planetariums of various countries, and even the aircraft carrier in the sky. At the same time, an alert prompt was received. Director, Director. On the aerospace aircraft carrier, the beautiful agent hurried into the director's office. At this moment, her mood was ups and downs, and it was difficult to calm down for a while. Hustle and panic, what do you look like? The bald director frowned. At this moment, he is still looking at the information. In the hand is a photo. In the film, there is a young man with a handsome face and a golden glove inlaid with gemstones. And behind the young man, there is a huge metal area surrounded by lightning. And a man with a cold face and a big black sword in his hand. There was also a man in a study uniform with a shotgun. And a domineering and burly man with 2 horns on his head. There is another, there is a strange deer, noble and extraordinary, holy and glorious. According to the captain's report, these guys are all very strong. Even the deer, which has never been shot, has a dangerous aura that makes people horrified. There is no doubt that this is naturally Ye Qing and his subordinates. Ye Qing's file has been classified as a top secret, the highest level file. And now, this woman really knows how to pick time? Why bother yourself at this moment? The bald chief looked at the agent with some displeasure, waiting for her answer. No, Director, there is information that the moon has disappeared, the agent said, and she was still a little restless until now. Isn't it that the moon disappeared? The bald director said, but soon, he felt something was wrong, his eyes widened, and he exclaimed, what did you say? The moon disappeared. Are you sure you're not joking? The director stood up, staring at the agent solemnly with one eye. I'm sorry, Chief, I'm not joking. The moon just disappeared. The agent smiled wryly, just 100 minutes ago, the moon just disappeared out of thin air, without any sign, and without any omen, the moon just disappeared out of thin air, as if it was grabbed by an invisible big hand. Same. Quickly, organize a rescue team. The director's expression sank, and he hurriedly issued an order. He knows too well what impact the disappearance of the moon will have on Blue Star. One mistake, perhaps, this is the doomsday disaster for Blue Star. When the flood hit, Blue Star completely became a star. Of the 7 billion people in the world, perhaps less than 1% can survive. Such is the terrifying effect of the disappearance of the moon. The agent quickly said yes, turned around and left. And the bald chief was not idle, he left the office directly. It seems that it's time to find Captain Iron Man and others. This situation cannot be handled by 1 or 2 agents. Professional matters must be left to professional people. And at the same time, the same reaction as the bald director was also given by the top leaders of various countries. The moment everyone heard the disappearance of the moon, their pupils were shocked, and they called it impossible. But when the facts are in front of them, they have to believe it even if they don't believe it. When such shocking things happened, all they could do was to save people, and save as many people as possible. At this moment, the entire blue star is boiling. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.